Before you fast forward, hear me out for a second. Did you know that if you were one of my awesome subscribers on either Patreon or Spotify, you could listen to the entire episode without all the pre-roll ads? That's right. Subscribers' episodes start out right in with just the intro music. So go check that out if you're tired of hearing me read ads. The poll results from last week were pretty clear. Most of you do not believe in the Feed the World myth. So head on over to Spotify and vote in this week's poll. All right, welcome to another episode of Ranching Reboot, your favorite regenerative ag podcast. In today's episode, we're taking a deep dive into some unconventional topics, from lawn care to CBD and soap making. Our guest, Justin Harris, is redefining the boundaries of farming. We'll be discussing everything from the sustainability of industrial ag to the challenges faced by small farmers. So saddle up and let's hit the reboot button on our perspectives on farming and food systems. Today's episode is brought to you by Audubon Conservation Ranching and the Audubon Certified Bird-Friendly Seal, the new standard in connecting consumers to conservation. Once a ranch is certified as bird-friendly, a list that now includes yours truly, the Alexander Ranch, home of the Ranching Reboot podcast, beef and bison products can carry the Audubon Certified Bird-Friendly Seal, which lets consumers know their purchases originated on lands managed for biodiversity and birds. Why birds? Because birds like the lesser prairie chicken and quail that I focus on are arguably the best indicators that your regenerative ranching practices have taken flight and are helping the entire ecosystem. If you're interested in joining me and Audubon in working at the intersection of land, food, and wildlife, learn more at audubon.org/ranching. Hey, you want to make a podcast? Spotify's got a platform that lets you make one super easily, then distribute it everywhere and even earn money. All in one place for free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters, and here's how it works. Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit podcasts right from your phone or computer, so no matter what your setup is like, you can start creating today. Then you can distribute your podcast to Spotify and everywhere else podcasts are heard. Video podcasts are also available on Spotify. And when you want to take your conversations with fans to the next level, Q&A and polls are the best way to get them talking. With Spotify for Podcasters, you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions. Best of all, it's totally free with no catch. I highly recommend you give it a try. Download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started today. Well, hey, Justin. How you doing today, buddy?
Hey, I'm awesome. It's good to be here with you.
Well, I'm glad we finally made this work. And, I got up about 2 hours ago and was going through my morning. And about an hour ago, I started sniffling. My nose started running, head started getting a little stuffy. And I'm like, oh, no, this isn't going to work. We're not rescheduling this one again. I do not have an episode for Monday. So we are powering through this one no matter what.
Yeah, you need to quit getting the sniffles.
Yeah, I think it's just Kansas. It's just Kansas in a late spring, early summer.
Yeah.
No matter what, I'll have a couple of days in the summer and in the fall where I get a little bit done in the morning and then the allergies just set in and I can't do anything the rest of the day. The head just fills up with snot. And
yeah. Well, I guess I'm lucky. I take my generic allergy pills every day and I just kind of soldier through it, but because we're outside all the time, there's no escaping it.
Yeah.
No, I mean, there could be. It depends on where the business goes, but right, for the last 20 years, 25 years, there's been no escaping it. But who knows? Things might change.
Yeah, I'm used to being outside in it a little bit, and if I've got to power through it and get work done, we get it done, but it's just not very pleasant. And I try to get done as quick as I can. So
Yep.
So you've been at it 25 years. What have you been doing for 25 years?
Oh, well, I've been started in the agronomy business 25-ish years ago, just out of college. And then soon after that, started a lawn care business. I kind of had the desire. I wasn't really liking the agronomy business as much as I thought I was going to. Mostly because it just wasn't quite what I thought it was going to be. And so we started a lawn care business and thought, hey, we could take that knowledge base and that education and start a lawn care business. And my parents had always been, I don't know, you just got to have a nice lawn and free of weeds and bugs and all that. And I, was kind of accustomed to that lifestyle, and I liked my lawn and like to mow my little stripes in my lawns. And so we started a lawn care business, just like a fertilizing and pest management kind of a business. And it's been good for us. It's allowed us to do, I mean, it's gotten so busy that we have no life, but no free time. And we're trying to kind of get that back. But yeah, that's so we have had the lawn care business for 22 years, and it's as old as my oldest son, and that's what keeps us busy and kind of pays for the party, allows us to do the fun things that we do. But it's also kind of, yeah, the last couple of years have been with, because that's not the reason that I'm on your podcast today, is the lawn care business. But so the last couple of years have been kind of an interesting life journey that has taken us in directions that we never thought we would take. but
Okay.
but we have to kind of feather that throttle a little bit. I can't quit my day job cold turkey, because how are you going to pay the bills?
Well, you're here because you're my friend, and I want to hear what you have to say. That's why you're here. Um, I was sitting here thinking about like some of the parallels between agronomy and lawn care. And you said you're doing stuff like weed killer and fertilizer. Uh, can you talk maybe about some of the parallels between modern agronomy and quote crop science and lawn care?
Well, yeah, I mean, the plant physiology is the same. When you're talking plants, the weed taxonomy is mostly the same. You deal with a few different weeds between lawn care than you do crop production, but like I said, the modes of actions and the chemistries are all the same. Lawn care chemicals are just packaged in a different package with a different label, and it's marked up an extra 125% than the ag chemical active ingredient, is how that works. And so, and I came out of the University of Nebraska with a bachelor in agricultural sciences. And we learned a lot about the soil chemistry, and how the soil bank is just like a checking account for chemicals and chemistry. And so I thought, it's the same thing. And I guess I kind of had more of a love after seeing the retail, yeah, because that's where I went. I went straight into ag retail, quote unquote, agronomy. You know,
What do you mean by
eh,
that?
by retail,
Yeah, yeah.
well, we were selling fertilizer, we were selling chemicals, we were selling application services, we were selling seed. Um, it wasn't really, it wasn't because I came into it at the end of the 90s, and it really wasn't, you know, like assisting in crop production. It wasn't the, partners, working on plans and, helping these producers through the season with, all of your university education. I mean, it was just sales, and that's really all it was. And I never really was good at the sales part because I didn't really want to be a salesman. I wanted to be a helper. I wanted to be there and be a helper, like, scout your fields, help you with the new technologies and the new sciences, and, help you be profitable. And it wasn't really like that. It always kind of had the guise of you were there to help, but you were really just there to sell stuff, farm the farmers. And I didn't even know that phrase until I think listening to your podcast last year. I think somebody threw that out there, and maybe it was another one, but it had to have been yours. I don't know who else's it
Sounds
would
like
have been.
something I might say.
Yeah, yeah, or people on your podcast say anyway. And that's, and I guess a lot of what's happened to us over the last few years has been a lot of reaffirmation of, maybe why I didn't like that position and that industry so much, and why I wanted to go off on my own. There for a while when I was kind of doing both. Well, I was doing both for 4 years, 3 years, 4 years, people were saying, why don't you go off on your own and do this and your lawn care business? And I was terrified. I just thought, how in the world can I survive without, you know, health insurance and retirement and things like that? And I was terrified. And I said, oh, I'm never going to do that. Well, by 2006, I was, getting ready to turn 30. And I thought, man, if you don't do it now, I don't want to, wake up when I'm 50 and go, man, I wonder how my life would have been different if I would have tried to do stuff on my own terms instead of, just punching the time clock, so to speak.
Okay. So
So
so that's why you got out of agronomy and went into lawn care.
yeah, so that's why. And we've gotten so busy that, we almost can't even answer the phone anymore. Because there's only so many people you can help. And COVID really, can we say that?
Yeah, yeah.
You gonna get a
I
blue
don't
bar.
care. I don't even care anymore.
So, or we could just call it the government, call it for what it really was, government lockdowns.
Wuhan beer flu.
Yeah, yeah. Gosh, we got so busy. We got so busy. Just, in 18, we built our new house. We live in a barn dominium outside of McCook. And we built that in 2018. And that made us pretty busy because there were a lot of things on the house that, like I'm going to the bank and saying, like, this is how much it's going to cost to build the house, and this is my budget. This is my plan. Well, I knew it was going to cost more than that, and I knew I couldn't get the loan for it. So there was a lot of stuff that we were going to be doing outside the loan, paying for, and landscape supplies,
I hope
things
your
like that.
I hope your banker doesn't listen.
I highly doubt it. I highly doubt it. But you know what? I make every payment, and and most of our stuff's paid for. But we had to get busy for 5 years, the last 5 years, to get everything, I mean, there's still a few things on the house that aren't done, but they're minor things at this point. But we've got a beautiful home, and I love it. It's got a ginormous wraparound uh, covered porch on three sides, and a big outdoor grill island. I can smoke meat and throw stuff on a black stone and grill all at the same time. I mean, I can do it all. I got three different grills built into the bar, and using my, and because our lawn care business turned into a landscaping business at one point too. So we started doing everything: retaining walls, patios, fire pits, outdoor lighting. We do sprinklers, underground sprinklers, and that's one thing I'm trying to kind of get out of for the most part. It's just hard on the old knees, and man, it's weird, but this is the first summer in I 12 years I don't have any sprinkler systems sold right now. Like, I don't have anything on the books. My neighbor, who's also in the same business, he's been in the business, almost, well, probably 15 years longer than I've been in it, and he needed to borrow my machine the other day because his broke, and I said, yeah, you can use it. I don't have any sprinklers to put in this summer, and I feel pretty dang good about it. I feel like, yeah, I mean, we're still busy, and we're making a bunch of plans that we're going to talk about here today. I think, and the sprinklers just get in the way of all that, and so I kind of have my books cleared as far as that goes, and so we're making some plans to do some really cool stuff later this summer.
Would you rather be building decks and patios or working on the lawn?
Oh, I'd rather be sitting on my Walker lawnmower with my earbuds in, listening to podcasts, mowing my lawn. I love mowing grass. And I've got a lot less grass than I used to. We used to have a little sod farm out front. It was about 4 acres of sod. And we've been going through this drought that I think you might have mentioned a couple times on your podcast. There's been this little drought we've had.
Yeah, I think I've said something about it
I
once.
don't I don't think it's even affected anyone mentally, has it?
Oh no, of
It's
course not.
so we lost our sod so bad. We've got a pretty big well for a resident. It's as big of a residential well as you can have. And we've got grazing paddocks for our animals, and we had the 4 acres of sod, and we're trying to grow our own food. That's been another part of our journey the last few years. And we just didn't have enough water for the sod. So I was trying to, for the last, for in last year, 2021 and 2022, we were just trying to spread the water as thin as we could. The sod just fried. It was just so hot every day. The wind blew. It was like a blast furnace every day of the summer. It was miserable. And everybody around here, it's different down in Kansas, but in Southwest Nebraska, everybody's just addicted to Kentucky bluegrass. They just can't see any other type of grass that would ever work in the world except Kentucky bluegrass. And that's another thing agronomically. There are there's things are different. When I got into the business, it was so easy to keep Kentucky bluegrass green, nice green, that the people, how they want it. And
But when I
any
lived in Virginia, that's what I had in my lawn. Like, I mean, Kentucky 31, like
that
I
that's
had a pretty
that's tall
decent
fit.
yard. I had a decent
Yeah.
yard in Virginia, but when it rains like 60 to 80 inches a year, it's pretty easy to have a good looking yard.
Well, that's what I tell people. I said, think about it. It's Kentucky bluegrass. It's native to Kentucky. They get like 70 inches of
No,
rain a
no, no, no,
year.
no. I are
You
you
can't.
sure are you sure it's native to Kentucky?
I thought so. I assume it. I mean, there's no way. It has to be. There's no
I,
way this stuff was growing in the Great Plains before we came out here and started settling and building, at post World War II and started, building the white picket fence lawns. There's no way that stuff could have survived out here. Not a chance.
I think it's actually a European grass that was brought over.
Well, that's probably it. That's
I
probably it.
I'm gonna
They
have
brought,
to look
yeah,
that up, but I think Kentucky bluegrass is actually a European grass that was brought over.
yeah. I wouldn't be surprised because
Anyway,
they have to put some nice grass in front of their manor and their castle, right?
I'll go to look pretty.
And have a gardener to show everybody how wealthy and prestigious they are. And look at my lawn. There's no bees.
Yeah, we want to plant pollinators. Like we want a pollinator garden in our front yard.
Oh yeah. See, now I want all I want, so I used to have this huge, like 4.5 acre bluegrass lawn out in front of the house on my 15 acre, property out here. And I used to love it. And then it just got to the point where it's like, the last couple of years, I'd rather just have the little circle that's in my circle drive and everything else just be native grasses, wildflowers, pollinators, things like that. I mean, we just did a landscape job for a large financial institution that has offices all over the country. And what I thought was crazy, and one of the things that's just been kind of driving me nuts here lately is, they it's 3 acres, 3 acres of irrigated turf grass, and it was all sodded, and a little bit of warm season non-irrigated in the back detention pond area. And the city was raising a fuss about it when the plans came across their board, and they're like, "Oh, you're going to use too much water. Like you don't need that much lawn." They wanted it and they got it, and it's like it's a beautiful building, but I just think there's an outer yard and then there's the inner yard, and I mean they could have had a half acre or more just with the inner yard. And I think, that building would look so much more beautiful if that outer yard wasn't, highly manicured, highly irrigated, cool season turf grass. If it was just native grasses with like some little blue stems and blue grommas and all of our native grasses and had some wildflowers in it, man, that would be pretty. It To me, it would look like it was made for the prairie. I mean, the high plains, but weeds are hard to control, establishing native turfs, that's obviously you're gonna have pigweeds out there and kochia, and it's just mind boggling. And I think that's another thing about the industrial agriculture that's gone wrong. And I had a gal, my parents' neighbor, in fact, she was Dr. Patsy. She pioneered the heifer development industry back in the what early 90s.
Okay.
She came from Kansas, established a feed yard here south of McCook, and yeah, they developed heifers all over the country, and she sold her business here a few years ago. But she told me one time she was up in Montana, for meetings or something, because she used to go all over the country, still does, I think, go all over the country and do talks. and she said something about, coming back, driving through Montana. She, all the road ditches are full of grass and wildflowers, and she gets back home to Southwest Nebraska, and it's like the seventh dimension of weed choked hell. And that's it. It's like we were up in Wyoming last week for a little family getaway, first time in 4 years, and
Hold up. So I want to go back to your road ditch observation.
yeah.
A couple of my observations about road ditches. So I can travel on the highways all the way west to the Colorado state line here in Kansas. And I can look at the road ditches. And if I'm seeing things like Indian grass and big blue stem in the road ditches, all the way to, Colby and Elkhart and Syracuse, everything that's right all the way on the west end, please don't tell me you live in shortgrass prairie. The other observation I kind of want to make about road ditches is, so I kind of live in ranch country, and just a few miles north it gets back up into square land,
Hmm.
irrigated corn, bean, cotton, uh, wheat, pivots, whatever. So as I go north out of town, going through the pasture land, the pastures, maybe some not great managers, but the grass in the ditch. That's what I'm watching. Not
Hmm.
watching on the sides of the fence, just watching what's in the ditch, the forage in the ditch. And as we go up through the pastures and some of the CRP ground, you know, you'll see healthy plant composition represented in the ditch. You'll see the big blues, the Indians, the little blues, the grommas, the buffalo grass, and some of the weeds. The weeds aren't quite as prevalent, because of when they mow it twice a year out to the fences, it kind of has a tendency to kill some of that stuff. But here's the point that I'm making. Then when you get up and you're not driving through the pasture land anymore, and you get up to where you're driving against a farm field.
Hmm.
So there's a field that's kind of like a corn, bean, cotton oscillation rotation thing. The ditches along there, it's all really, really poor, low succession grass, no
Hmm.
weeds. The next field is a wheat field. There's, I'd say there's maybe some like middle succession plants, and then you get back to some pasture land, and it's back to the taller grasses. And I'm thinking of that because it's like edge effect, right? So as we're driving down these roads and we're looking at these ditches, and you see a ditch that's just, if the ditch is dead, how is that field healthy? I guess is kind of what I'm looking is the way I'm seeing it is when I'm seeing a dead ditch and really low succession plants in a ditch, and there's a farm field right next to it. It's a pretty good clue to me that that guy is just he pulls out the jugs of chemicals for everything. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, and and that's what I'm saying. Like around here, I mean, you'll come across some road ditches, and usually that's near pasture. In Red Willow County, here in Southwest Nebraska, it's mostly canyon land. I mean, we've got definitely have farm ground in Red Willow County, but it not like they do over in Chase County. Chase County's, mostly. I mean, they've got pivots everywhere. But yeah, driving around the country, I mean, well, just last night we were, just north of here, across the canyon, walking goats for with the kids for 4-H, and there's kochia and uh, ditchweed and common sunflower, ragweed, eyeball high already because we've had of those drenching rains over the last month, and there's nothing in those road ditches but weeds, nothing but weeds. And it's getting to the point where it's almost dangerous coming around a corner, because I mean the county mows most of the road ditches, but not all of them. They mow the main ones outside of town, I think, and that's about it. But most everywhere you go, it's just weeds in the road ditch. Grassy sandburs. A mile down from my house, it's nothing but almost nothing but grassy sandburs, and those are the worst. Those are the absolute worst.
And how hard are they to get rid of with a chemical? Like it seems like the plants that we're getting left with now are just more and more resistant to
I'm
chemical.
I'm finding that in the lawn care industry. The grassy sandburs are getting harder and harder to control all the time. they're getting worse. In 20 years, I've seen them just spread everywhere. And of course, they spread easy because they stick to animals, they stick to your tires, they stick to the four-wheeler tires, mower tire, any tire they stick to. And but they've gotten worse, and we've been through three droughts. We're just getting done with the third drought since I got out of college. And I don't remember droughts before I was an adult, or before I was in college. I don't remember droughts. I mean,
That's a trick.
it is a
That's a
trick,
trick. That's a
you know.
trick we play on ourselves because we grow up and we have this really narrow window and we think
Exactly.
this is what the world is.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And then it's like, well, I've experienced all these droughts. Yeah, you've experienced three droughts since you got out of college 15 years ago, but that little lens you're looking at saying it wasn't like this when we grew up, it's not that big of a viewport. At least
Yeah.
that's my experience, and that's what I've had to learn about myself.
Oh yeah, that's totally it. I mean, that's just like anybody saying, "Oh, this generation of kids, they're not worth a crap." It's like, man, everybody's been saying that since for the last 70 years. Everybody once you get into your 40s and 50s, all kids are dumb. They're all doing stupid crap and you think, "Oh man, the world is lost because of these dumb kids." It's like your parents said that about you and your grandparents said that about your dad. He was dumb kids or they don't work in the salt mines anymore. I mean, the world's going to heck. These kids don't work in the coal mines when they're 9 anymore. What are we going to do?
Yeah. Yeah, I had to drive to school both ways in a pickup without air conditioning or power windows. That's how rough I had it.
Yeah, yeah. It like so my parents, they had to walk to school. I had to drive to school without air conditioning and like our kids, if they had to go to school without their cell phone, I mean, it's all relative to I
In a
mean,
few years, it's going to be I had to drive myself to school.
oh, I had to touch the steering wheel. Oh, that's fun. But no, it's just I don't know. That the road, she made the comment about that road ditch and it still sticks with me today because we were in Wyoming last week and we rented a little house, little cabin, like
Little.
15 it was little. It was like a tiny home for us. We've got this big sprawled out barn dominium and then we're in this little tiny, 2-bedroom with a loft. Well, one bedroom and then the loft, but little dorm fridge in the kitchen and half the kitchen is under the stairs to the loft. It was pretty tiny, but it was so beautiful. I mean, I felt like only millionaires can afford the view that this thing had from the front porch. It was
I didn't spend
mind
a lot of time looking at the inside pictures, but I looked at the outside pictures. I'm like, man, that's a spot.
that is, I mean, who I did. I just felt like for 3 days I got to feel like one of those millionaires that gets to build a home up there in the Tetons or outside Yellowstone, but gosh, it was gorgeous. And it was just, and I'm hiking around with the kids and it's just the thing that always strikes me about the mountains is you're climbing those hills there and you're seeing all these little short little bunch grasses and these neat little wildflowers and they're just growing in rocks in a tiny little bit of dirt and there's no weeds and it's like if I was home there'd be grassy sandburs in here, there'd be kochia that would be eyeballs high by now. It would be a weed choked corner of hell. And here's this, nobody's doing any chemical weed control up here. They're not flying on herbicides. I mean, how do they keep all the weeds out of the there's just dirt and rocks right there and it's nothing but little bunch grasses because they don't get a lot of moisture up there, I don't think. And because we were in kind of that area, we were still what 25, 30 miles from the east entrance of Yellowstone. So we were there where the trees are kind of just scrub trees. It wasn't we were still down low enough. It was kind of the desertish kind of mountainous areas, where you get it's just sage and wildflowers and rocks and dirt. But it's just amazing that, all these hundreds and thousands and millions of years, the weeds haven't invaded those areas yet. But back home, you can't even kill the stuff with chemicals hardly anymore. It's weird.
It's
And you can, and it goes back to the chemicals. It goes back to all the chemicals. I mean, we've turned this into. I mean, I'm sure when the Pawnee Indians were, running up and down the Republican here, I'm sure they weren't stepping on sandburrs, and kosher. They weren't chopping kosher down to feed their horses. And I
they
mean, I'm
probably
sure.
stopped whenever they found a sandbur. They probably stopped and pulled it all out and burned it, so they never have that problem again. I mean, that's kind of the mindset that I think some of the tribes had is
Probably, yeah.
this is bad. We're just not going to have this here anymore.
Yeah.
Or they were smart enough to go around places where it really grew a lot. So, a lot of the people that I've talked to on this podcast tell me the weeds are telling you something,
Mm-hmm.
right? When there's weeds in the field, they're telling you something. That's really a Macaulay Kincaid thing. So, he'll go out and he'll sample weeds. Like he'll go sample the kochia, he'll go sample the pigweed, and I'll send those samples into the lab to see, okay, what is this plant doing? Well, let's take pigweed for example. Now, when we have a year like we've had in the plains, everybody's got problems with weed pressure in their crop fields. Okay, not whatever. The pigweeds, right? So you go out there and you see these 4, 5, 6 foot tall pigweeds growing out of 3 foot tall wheat. That's bad. Oh, we got to kill those. Well, that pigweed is like 25% crude protein when it's green.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, really good cow feed, also known as Palmer amaranth, for those of you that don't know a lot of Latin out there. And there's several articles about like how to get cows to eat Palmer amaranth. And when I read that, I'm like, well, what's Palmer amaranth? So I looked that up real quick. I'm like, oh, that's pigweed. They eat that. Like, why do you have to train cows to eat that? Like, in my experience, I haven't had to train cows to eat that because they'll eat it.
Mm-hmm.
No problem. They'll go find it. They'll walk past. They'll go run past big blue stem grass that is growing in full leaf to go eat a pigweed.
Yeah. And kosher.
And
They
yeah,
love kosher.
so anybody that's ever pulled up a pigweed knows that it's got a really big taproot that likes to go really deep. Now, I don't see pigweeds in my pasture at all. Okay. I've got there's two spots on my south end where a neighbor farms wheat on the other side of the fence. And he's really conventional. Okay. Like just in the last week, he's had the spray plane out twice to burn down all the broadleaves so he can cut his wheat. And we're we're having a little issue with him.
Now
Not
wait a minute. Now wait a minute.
okay.
He's flying on like a broadleaf herbicide, or just flying on Roundup to kill everything to burn.
It's a broadleaf herbicide. Like I
Oh,
talked to the
okay.
spray company yesterday.
Yeah, because you're further south. I mean, your wheat's not ready to cut yet. It's not quite. It's getting there.
Oh no, it's the third week of June. They should have been cutting already.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. They should have
Well, I
started
guess it is.
cutting
Yeah,
wheat.
boy, time's really getting away from me. It is almost the end of June. Jeez.
Yeah, they should have started cutting 3 or 4 weeks ago here. I mean, I remember times. So my birthday's the 1st of June, and for to not be cutting wheat on my birthday is it's kind of a rare thing.
Yeah.
Um, so where was I going with that?
Well, he's flying on. He's had the
Oh,
plane out twice.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He's had the plane out twice, and I had the whole place put in the Audubon Conservation Ranching Program. Right? I can't spray
Right.
anything. Well, I didn't tell him. I didn't think about it.
Oh.
So I've got between 200 and 500 yards of dead forbs and quote weeds out in the pasture. Like some of the stuff cows won't eat. A lot of it is.
Yeah.
And I made the guy at the spraying company when I talked to him yesterday, Ariel, I mean, flies air tractors. He was just the office guy. He was pretty confrontational until I told him that I was in a program that was harder to get into than certified organic. And then he really started changing his tune, like real fast. Like he gave me his last name, told me his insurance company, told me his boss's name. I mean, he got pretty forthcoming with the information. So, I mean, look, and this is a situation like nobody's the bad guy here, right? My neighbor's
No,
the bad guy for farming next to me and for calling the sprayer. The pilot's not the bad guy for getting a little drift on me. The office guy's not a bad guy. Like it
you
really it's on me because I should have told the neighbor. I've been working on a letter. I was working on a letter yesterday afternoon, and I guess I'm going to send a letter to my neighbors, and I'm going to have to get in touch with the aerial application companies around, let them know that leave a little more buffer strip and
yeah.
go
Well,
down there with the north wind.
you brought up a good point, and I think that's something that we always have to talk about when we talk about these things is no one's the bad guy. And it like on social media right now, well, this is the thing that this is the thing that drives me nuts is where do you get the truth? Where do you get the right information? Because I don't have time to read books, so I listen to books like and listened to Wastelands about the Smithfield lawsuits in North Carolina,
Yes.
and that was an absolute. I mean, that was an eye-opening book because there are social media, and there's one gal in particular that's on social media, and she's advocating for farms and farm life and industries, things like the agricultural industries, and I used to really follow her and think that yeah, go girl, do your thing, advocate for agriculture. Well, then I listened to Wastelands, and when you really start, because I used to really follow politics, and I still kind of do, but that used to consume all my daily my daily uptake of information was just listening to partisan politics, and all it did was drive me nuts because
And
the world
you
the
can't
world's coming to an end. You can't do that to yourself. So that's when I really
live
got
your
into
life like that. You can't live your
no,
life like
no, no. And so I gave that up cold turkey, and I started listening to podcasts, and started in with Rogan, and then yours was the second one. And we can circle back to that in a minute. There's a good reason that I found your podcast. Name is Mike. And
we'll get
but
back to that guy.
yeah. So so now when I see this person on social media, it has become all too clear that the types of tactics that the industrial ag companies like Smithfield, the tactics that because it's just like what you're talking about. Nobody's the bad guy here. You're not a fruitcake because you're trying to do the Audubon Society certified, pasture range. The guy that's trying to do organic is not a fruitcake. I used to think that they were fruitcakes because we get programmed by the industrial ag industry. We get programmed that those people are fruitcakes. That food is no safer than our conventional food, and it's all a bunch of brainwashing. And when I read that book, I'm just it's just like the last 25 years of my adult life and career is now all of these dots are being connected, and I'm starting to see everything for what it really is. And it wouldn't have happened if it wouldn't wasn't for the government lockdowns and what we saw happen, what happened to the food chain, the supply system. You can the masks were pulled off of these ugly corporations, and now when you see these people out there, I can't help but look at her and wonder how much money does she get from the Monsantos or the Bayers or the Syngentas, the seed companies. I mean, I used to deal with all of them, sell their products, but I just and now I see she's out there pining on social media to try to get on the Joe Rogan podcast because he needs to learn a thing or two about real farming. He's just very misinformed, and you've listened to him. I mean, he's a real big proponent of regenerative agriculture, and he's had Joel Salatin on, and that's what I think is so cool. I feel so so prestigious, to be on the same podcast that Joel Salatin was on, because Joel Salatin was on Rogan. So I'm only like 3 degrees or 2 degrees from Rogan, 3 degrees, not very many degrees anyway.
I'm just
But
happy that he returned my email and said, yeah, I'll do your show.
and Will Harris too. I mean,
Yeah.
that's two Will Harris and Joel Salatin, and it's funny. I talk about these people, to producers around the area. Like, have you ever heard of Joel Salatin? No, never heard of him. You ever heard of Will Harris? White Oak Pat? No, never heard of him. But nobody's the bad guy because, and this is what I see, because when I was in high school, I worked for a guy, that had a little hog operation. He raised bulls, certified Angus bulls, black Angus bulls, and I started working for him when I was probably 16 and worked for him for like 3 or 4 years while I had some other jobs. And my main job was just grinding feed and keeping the feed flowing to the farrowing house and in the nursery, sort cattle, fix fence, build fence, clean the farrowing house, clean the nursery. In between groups of sows coming in, it's my job to pull up all the floor grates and clean out all the rotten feed and the manure and do rat killings, things like that in the nursery. I mean, it was an exciting job. It was terrible, and I made 4.25 an hour, doing that kind of work. And
If
and
the choice was shoveling out farrowing houses and hog houses for $5 an hour or being homeless and jobless, I think I'd learn how to live in a tent.
It wasn't that bad. I mean, I smelled like hogs all the time, and I lost there was like 5 years that I couldn't even eat ham or bacon. It just, I don't know. It's a weird thing to think about, the fact that you lost your appetite for bacon. Thankfully, I got it back. It didn't take long, but I got my appetite for bacon back. But the funny thing was, I always ate lunch out there with them, when we were working, and all they ever had was ham. It's just ham sandwiches every day because they just send their hogs to the butcher, and that's what they had, sliced ham. And oh gosh, I got so sick of ham. I mean, I'm out there, scooping out the farrowing house because the tip tank never worked properly, and so it never flushed those gutters, and I had to power wash it and scoop it out by hand. But at the same time, so I was there when the hog, I was there in 96 when the hog, that's what I was doing when the hog industry went to crap. I remember taking the last load to town, and I remember unloading them and talking to Rob, and he's just like, we're losing money on every one of these. We're losing money on, and now, that stuff's sitting out there. It's got weeds growing around it. And I talked to him the other day, and he said, everything's still there. I mean, he could start up an operation because he was talking about that Prop 13 or whatever it is out in California, the whatever that. Oh, in California, they've got that new law that all the pork in no pork in California can come from a confinement operation. They have to have so many square feet to live, and whatnot. There's a lot of stipulations, and basically it put a lot of uh, it's kind of sending some ripples through the industry. And I told Rob, I said, I don't know if I'd wait. I said, you just got to go direct to consumer, start raising hogs again, and then you just got to build up I mean, I'll buy hogs from you. I mean, I'm buying my pork locally, but you just have to find a customer base and nurture that customer base, and it's not easy. It's not easy. There's a couple guys, one in particular here around Southwest Nebraska that he's a beef bootlegger, old John, and he does
On
a heck
O'Day?
of a job. Yeah, John O'Day. Yeah, we buy beef from John. I buy beef from a couple guys around town, and John's awesome. He's delivering beef all over the country, clear up to Washington and Montana. He's got customers everywhere. But and he found a way. I mean, I don't think he's going to be driving a Bentley or a Cadillac with horns on it anytime soon, but at least he's not getting screwed at the barn.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing is just finding another market rather than getting screwed
Yeah.
at the barn. And I think even a lot of conventional farmers are starting to see that. Like,
Hmm.
you know, they're getting farmed. They're getting farmed by the bank. They're getting farmed by the equipment dealer, by the seed dealer, by their agronomy
Oh,
consultant, by the.
absolutely. Well, maybe not the agronomy consultant. Let's not
I,
let's
I
not throw
mean,
that guy.
I wasn't trying to throw you under the
No,
bus.
I know. No, but but nobody's the bad guy, and that's the thing. It's there. What I learned, if there's anything that I learned from Wastelands, is that the corporations that have consolidated this power and this this industry, they will stop at nothing. There's no stone that they will not overturn to polarize this industry and turn people against each other. Excuse me. The in that in that deal, the Wastelands, just in case no one's read or listened to the book, the Smithfield's, contract hog operators were just pumping liquid manure into the air, and it was mostly in black neighborhoods. And these people, their land was worthless. People were sick.
Yeah,
They had respiratory.
let's hold up for a second.
Yeah.
I didn't understand this until I kind of went back and I, spent some time in Arkansas a couple months ago around where all the chicken houses are in Northwest Arkansas. Like if you go listen to Meat Racket, which is another book our friend Mike recommends, all that takes place around Northwest Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
And just in the proximity of where these, chicken houses are. And I'll be real. I've looked on Google Earth of where they're talking about in North Carolina. Okay. And it's kind of endemic of a bigger problem. Okay. I can do what I want on my land, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can do what you want on your land, right?
Yep.
I can do whatever I want as long as it doesn't affect you on your side of the fence, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Well, when they build, a 200-foot long hog barn 50 feet away from the fence,
Yep.
and somebody's living 100 feet on the other side of that fence, you can't tell me that big barn isn't going to affect that person's quality of life. And,
Exactly.
and that's what they've done. I mean, they'll go in, they'll build, 6 chicken houses, and 500 feet away, there's a neighborhood
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of a poor neighborhood. Well, why are they building them in poor neighborhoods? Well, duh, land's cheap.
Yeah.
That's why they build stuff there. I
Yeah.
mean, you're not going to go down to, lower Manhattan in New York City and buy a couple blocks of real estate, burn it to the ground, and make a chicken barn there. You'll never make the economics work. You'll never pay for the land cost.
Nope.
So
No. But no, that's it. I
that's
mean,
why
you.
it's
It,
not they're not putting them in like black communities or poor community or communities of any color. Like I'd like to make that point. It's not they're not going to these places because people of color live there. They're going there because the land is cheap. And whether or not
well, and yeah,
anybody
and that's
else
and that's and that's mostly true. And I think it. What is that? It's like it's correlation, not causation, kind of a
right.
thing. I mean, it wasn't that they intentionally went. It was because it was poor, the land was cheap, and that's probably mostly the demographic of the area where this was occurring. It wasn't that they initially, yeah, I don't want it to sound like that, but so it was a correlation, not a causation kind of a situation. But the fact is that they were doing that, they like you said, these hog operations, their kill pin would be out in the back corner of that property, which would be yards away from someone. That's where the dead pin is, not the kill.
Yep.
The dead pin is right there on the property line to a neighbor, and it was horrifying. I mean, and I get, like, we live out in the country too. If somebody wanted to put a hog barn over here, they've got that right. But so what it boiled down to was, here all these people wanted some representation. They wanted the guys to stop pumping the manure and the big guns and aerosolizing it because they were sick. They couldn't even go outside. And long story short, there's this big multi-mega $100 million lawsuits, one after another. And so here comes all these, farm advocacy groups coming out and say, oh, the big city lawyers are out here trying to shut these family farms down and blah, blah, blah. We'll come to find out they weren't farm advocacy groups. They weren't, they would have names like Family Farmers for America or something. It was all fronted by Smithfield. It was all fronted, and which were the Chinese to
Yeah.
boot. It was all funded and started through Smithfield to go out and make it look like it was just big city lawyers. These people were working pro bono It was not big city lawyers coming out trying to steal our land and it. But what it showed me was that these corporations, I don't think people realize how much power and money corporations like Smithfield and Tyson and JBS, I don't think people understand the depths and the seriousness of how entrenched in politics, state, county, and federal, and how much money and power they wield in Congress. So when we're out here fighting like the guy that's spraying, we've got some beekeepers here in Southwest Nebraska, and she was on Facebook a few weeks ago because they had a plane flying right next to and they're on bee watch. They've got the sites registered, and here they are, and it's like, nobody's the bad guy, because last year when I needed a cane bale for my little steers we were bringing home, we got a couple of little miniature Hereford steers that we're feeding out. I needed a cane bale, and I went asked my brother-in-law if he had a cane bale, and I felt bad because we're in this drought, and I know he's struggling, everybody's struggling. And he said, yeah, and I'm like, yeah, it's not going to run you short. He's like, I'm going to run short, but I'm not going to run short one bale. I'm going to run short like 25, 30, 50 bales, whatever. So one bale's not going to overtip the apple cart. It's the problem's bigger than one bale. So I got a bale, and I'm like, you gonna plant enough feed, this year? And well, we got to plant corn. We got to plant pretty much, you got to plant corn for the insurance check to make the land payment, because there's no crop insurance for cane. There's
But
no
nobody,
crop insurance.
but nobody's telling him how to farm.
No, God, no. He's freedom to farm, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
And
he can farm however he wants to. Nobody's going to tell him how to farm. He can grow whatever he wants to, but he's got to grow corn to get a crop
that's
insurance. Make
and so that's what I've, the last few years have opened my eyes. Things are not things are you know things are not like they were in the 80s and 90s. The guys, like the guy that I used to work for, he's struggling. Everybody's struggling. Um, Everybody's farming for an insurance check to make a land payment, to pay taxes. Nobody's farming, and that's the struggle with, so I've become a big advocate for, natural soil health. I've learned a lot in the last couple of years, uh, out of my own. I'm a curious person, and I like all these things that interest me, and new ways of thinking. And it's amazing how much we've learned about microbiology in the last 20 years. When I was at UNL, everything we learned about soil was soil chemistry. That's it.
Yeah.
Everything we learned about mostly what we learned about plant physiology was genetics and how we can alter genes and things like that. That was most of our plant physiology. But all we learned about was chemical interactions and nutrient uptake, and we never stopped and talked about soil microbiology ever at UNL. We never talked about soil fungi. All we talked about was bad fungus. Like these are the plant diseases that we have to use fungicides on. Fusariums and you know Phytophthora root rot and things like that. We never talk. I didn't even know there was such a thing as beneficial fungi. Is that not insane that I went through the agronomy program at UNL, Land Grant University, and never learned that there was such a thing as a beneficial fungi and
That's
and
why.
symbiotic relationships with soil microbes in the soil? We never learned that.
What if what if the fungicides that we've been using for the last, I don't know, 50 years? What if the fungicides we've been using have been killing 99% of the beneficial fungi?
They are. That's
And
the whole
we're just
thing. And
left
that
with shit like
who
wheat leaf rust.
who was your red young down there in Kansas? He was on a couple months back. Uh,
Well, his last name's Young.
yeah, young, yeah.
Yeah, first
Ben
initial
or
J.
something. Ben
J.
Jay, yeah, Jay. That he was talking about that. He said there's a hierarchy to the fungi, and he said the beneficial fungi are actually more powerful than the detrimental fungi. And here we are, it just goes back to farming the farmers. I mean, we've got all this technology, and I used to think, and that's the thing is when I was in the university and got started in the business, I just always knew deep down that these companies, they weren't in it for the profit. They weren't in it for the power. They were in it to feed the world because we heard that all the time at UNL. Now it's a joke. It is, all I do is I laugh at that. We throw so much food away in this country, actual food. It's ridiculous. And I started noticing this when I was still in the business. I just, when I was doing my agronomy thing, we were, corn prices were low. We were doing, it was LDP world back then, and everybody was getting their LDP payments, and corn was just worthless. And the ethanol industry was really starting to boom, and they were passing bills to, to incentivize, ethanol plants. Well, we had to find all these ways to use up all this corn, and that's really, and see, and here we go again. Nobody's the bad guy. All the guys growing corn out here are not the bad guy. I'm not the bad guy. The guys working down at the co-op are not the bad guys. Everybody's out here trying to make a living. We're all trying to raise our families. We're all trying to save for retirement. We're all trying to pay these darn taxes. We're all trying to make a living. And everybody, no one is out here trying to do anything bad to other people, but we're all stuck in this system that has been crafted around us by the corporations. And I used to think that these big companies, the Syngenas and the Monsantos, and I used to think that, well, they're just doing this because, we have to feed the world. And these, it's not why they're doing it. I mean,
We're
if
not
if the
feeding the world.
we're
We're not
not
feeding the
feeding
world. Like it's the starving pygmies in New Guinea aren't eating number two yellow dent corn and white soybeans. I'm
no,
sorry. They're not
no.
eating cotton. Okay. Like what we get off on cotton later.
Well, hopefully,
Anybody that listens to this show knows I'm like 100% with you on this feed the world mentality crap. Like that's the worst thing. I wish we could stop saying that. Let's stop
well,
trying to feed the world. Let's feed our families and feed our communities. It's the feed the world. I just thought of this and I might go back on it, but feed the world is a slogan that was invented by the globalist corporatocracy in order to funnel money into their pockets.
oh, absolutely.
Because like
That
I mean,
that's all we've
40% of
yeah.
the food grown is wasted.
Yep.
Like, and that's in North America. 40% of the food we grow in America is wasted, thrown
Yep.
away, ends up in landfills, not used. Okay. 40%. Now, there's another number. It's about 85%. 85% of the world's population is fed off subsistence agriculture. So is the American industrialized ag system feeding the world? Are we feeding that 15% that's not being fed by subsistence agriculture? We're not even feeding that 15%. Like,
No. I think people need to understand exactly what those numbers mean, because you're right. 85% of the world's population is fed through, not necessarily hunting and gathering, but yeah,
farms.
these people are just going out and growing food for their family, for themselves. Think about that. Out of almost 9 billion people, that's a lot of people. And that is, then American agriculture does not feed that many people. That is crazy. All I can say is that what I come to find out is it wasn't about feeding the world, it was about feeding the pig. And that is the corporate entities. They are collectively the pig. It's feed the pig, because we're not feeding people. Um and maybe we can, talk about uh hemp, how that, and I'm not really in the hemp business so much as we are doing the soap thing, but it kind of ties into a lot of that. But you've got the commodity system, and every facet of our production system is about farming the farmers and feeding the pigs, feeding the corporate entities that control the input streams, they control the commodity streams, they control the quote unquote food processing, because 65% of what we eat in America is ultra processed ingredients, not real food. But gigantic corporate interests are in charge of every single facet of production. And and where's the money going? It are the guys in Southwest Nebraska. I mean, how are the family farms and ranches doing out here? How are they doing in Kansas? I mean, everybody's trying to go direct to consumer because these small farms are trying to go direct to consumer because it's the only way they can survive. So,
Because we see all the middlemen taking all the profit,
and
taking all the
yeah,
energy out of the system.
they're taking all the energy out of the system. And really what really opened my eyes to it was listening to Mike Callicrate. And man, did he hit the nail on the head. He said these corporations, they're mining operations. They're mining operations. And I've never heard anybody say that, because when I think of a mining operation, I think of like watching Parker Schnabel on Gold Rush. That's a mining
Right.
operation. We're mining gold, or we're mining coal or something. And I never looked at it as a mining operation, but there's a good, everybody's, well, not everybody, but a lot of people are aware of this now. This has been getting a lot of news, is that Saudi Arabian farm down in Arizona where they grow. Oh, I've read multiple articles about it. I've watched a news video. There's a video circulating about it. Some local news went out there. And so the Saudis own this farm because it's illegal to grow alfalfa in Saudi Arabia because they are short on water.
Yeah, it's illegal to grow alfalfa in
It's
Saudi
illegal
Arabia because it takes too much water.
because it takes like 50 acre inches to grow, alfalfa, whatever. It takes an
Eh,
enormous amount of water.
Now,
So what do
okay,
they do?
can you pause for a second?
Yeah.
Okay, we're talking about irrigating, quote, acre inches. Okay, if we're going to irrigate 50 acre inches of water, is that equivalent to 50 inches of rain on that acre? Like that's my
Well,
question.
it's
When
never,
we're
yeah. I
talking
mean,
about irrigating and we're saying, I'm going to go put on an inch and three quarters.
well, I mean, an inch of water is an inch of water, and every rain is different. It's just like here in Southwest Nebraska, a
I
month
mean,
ago, we got half of our annual rainfall in 6 hours, 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks ago here in McCook. It was insane.
you didn't get it. The rivers and the ponds got it.
That's my point. I mean, yeah, I mean, we've got we're not it's going to take us all summer to get our property put back the way it should be. It was terrible. But at the same time it was a godsend because now everything's green. But yeah, every rain's different. You could get an inch in 6 hours and you can get an inch in 6 minutes. At least with the pivot irrigation, you're not putting it on so fast that it's all running in the river. But that's not the point. The point is that the Saudi Arabian company can come to the United States. Oh, it gets really good, and we won't even go into the details. It's not like everybody else is getting this water. I mean, it's not like they just bought a farm and everybody down there is irrigating. There is some really deep corruption in there. They're stealing water from the state of Arizona. They're using water so fast that neighboring wells have gone dry, and they're looking down these test wells and they can see the water moving. This farm is sucking up so much water. And so what they're doing, for anybody that doesn't know, is they're growing this alfalfa, putting it on a ship and sending it to Saudi Arabia to feed their dairy cows. How is that not mining natural resources? A foreign company is buying land in the United States of America, mining our natural resources. Now, if you go listen to Peter Zion's book, The Beginning of the World is just the end of the world is just the beginning. Yeah, I always
Yep.
screw that up. You know, one thing that is amazing about the United States of America is the fact that we're bordered by the largest oceans on the planet. We've got friendly neighbors to the north and south for the most part. Um, we have natural resources that are unbelievable in this country. We really don't need other countries for anything. But yet here we are selling land to foreign companies, letting them come over here. And it's not just this alfalfa farm. It's
We're letting
Smithfield. It's Smithfield. The Chinese they own the hogs in this country. They're poisoning the groundwater. Everybody, and what they're really doing in rural America, like where we live and you live, they're these big operations are just mining the resources, and mostly what it is water. I keep telling people water is going to be the in 50 years, water is going to be like the gold rush. I mean, whoever has water is going to be like, you're going to be sitting on a gold mine.
I think it'll
And
be a
we
lot sooner in the Colorado River Basin.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, and that's the other scary thing is look at, okay, where do all your salad, like, you've been to the local grocery store and you go in there and you get your salad blend if you're not growing it yourself in season. Where's it all come from?
My salad comes from the yard, sir.
Well, yeah, but in the winter time it doesn't.
It comes from the grow tent.
Well, there you go. So, but I mean, if you go down to your local grocery store, like all the salad grains, they're all grown out in California. Well, you know, that whole Colorado River thing is a whole series of podcasts on its own. But the fact is, they divvied up the river and we stole most of the water from Mexico. That, where it flowed into Mexico, they don't even get any water now. We just took it from them. But they divide the Colorado River up to service, 10 million people that were living in the desert Southwest in California. Well, fast forward to today, now there's 40, 50 million people that river is serving. But not only that, that Central Valley out in California, they're growing like what, 80, 90% of all of the United States is fresh produce.
But they've got to pump water over two mountain ranges to do it.
Yeah, and if they run out of water, where in the heck are the rest of us going to get our food? I mean, it's not just that they've had the population growth. The population growth has been across the whole country. Well, not in rural America. That has actually declined in the last 50 years, but in the urban areas all across America, our population has exploded in the last 70 years. And so that river, not only is it, water and golf courses and filling swimming pools, and then a little bit of it's used for all that produce that's grown in Central Valley, but all that produce gets shipped out all over the country. It's mind boggling. Yeah, we pump the water over two mountain ranges out into a desert. We grow food in a desert, and then we put it on reefer trucks, and then belch, guzzle diesel and for not only the truck but the reefer unit, and ship that produce all over the country to places where there's plenty of water.
Beautiful shiny red tomato, perfect baseball size, no blemishes, nothing. It just tastes like water.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Back to your comment about the Saudi Arabian Arizona alfalfa farms. So they're getting water from a river that's over allocated for basically free.
Mm-hmm.
They're pumping groundwater without restriction.
Oh,
and they are a mining company. Okay, they're mining our water. They're mining our soil nutrients.
Yep.
They're mining federal subsidy dollars to do that with. Okay.
Yep.
You can't tell me that farm is not getting some sort of USDA federal subsidy dollars, either to help them build wells or to help them irrigate or whatever. And they're growing one of the most thirsty forage crops in a desert to ship the food halfway around the world to feed cows, and we're paying for it.
Mm-hmm.
The American taxpayer is paying for it. Like, is this what feeding the world means to you? Like, we get to feed some cows in Saudi Arabia?
That's exactly what it means.
It's great. It's great that their people are learning to enjoy dairy products. That's awesome. I'm all for more people drinking milk. But growing alfalfa in Arizona and shipping it to Saudi Arabia to feed cows makes zero sense in any sort of world where books are balanced.
It's mind-boggling to me that growing up in Nebraska, living here, we've been restricted, we're in the middle Republican NRD, Natural Resource District. Like the Wineglass Ranch where he's from, they're the upper Republican. He was on your show a couple weeks ago.
Logan
Primno, yeah. They've been restricted
on working cows too.
They've been restricted up there for I think 30 plus years, pumping water. in around 2000, when we were dealing with the drought 3 droughts ago, the middle Republican, they decided to put a moratorium in, no new irrigation wells. I'm going to slap some restrictions on, annual pumping restrictions, and they've got these windows, like 3 year windows, and everybody's put, they had to put meters, flow meters on all their wells, irrigation wells. Anything over under 50 gallon a minute would be considered residential and is non regulated. So we've had those things in place, and I just, the first time I come across that article, I thought, you've got to be kidding me. I mean, you're in a desert and you've got an aquifer and you're not regulating the water. What in the hell is wrong with these people? I can't believe that. I mean, and yeah, okay, we live in a free country. You're free to do whatever you want. Well, we're really not. I mean, you got to buy a fishing license. You got to pay to get into the national parks. You got to pay to get in your state park. I mean, and like you said, yeah, I can do whatever I want on my property. Well, to a certain extent. I mean, I can't go build a big pond and then pump water out of the ground into it, because then, WOTUS, the federal officials are going to come beating on your door that, you've created a unofficial pond or something. I mean, you can do whatever you want with your own land to a certain extent, which is on a larger scale is something else, that I was wanting to touch on, to talk about, when it comes to, well, just like raising cattle and what's going on in Brazil. Let's talk about what's going on in Brazil and the rainforest, and palm oil production and beef cattle ranches, things like that. I mean, you hear
Throw
a
the
lot of,
renewable fuel standard in there too, because that's driving rainforest destruction.
yeah, yeah, but I mean, like I sit here and I go, okay, I don't think we should be bulldozing the rainforest to grow palm. I don't think we should be bulldozing the rainforest to, raise cattle. I think the rainforest should probably stay there. But then it's like, well, who are we to tell, the Brazilians what they can do with our land? I mean, look what we do with our land. I mean, yeah, we've got restrictions. I mean, we don't let, or do we? I mean, you sit here and you go, just watch any documentary about what's going on in South America, and you're going to see, or Africa, and you're going to see that these Chinese mining companies are coming into these, mostly third world areas, and they're, stealing, mining the natural resources, and they're bulldozing rainforests. And I mean, we really don't have that going on in our country, or do we?
No,
Or
we do.
maybe it's just more sophisticated in our country, like
It's
Smithfield
family dollar.
sells family. Yeah, I mean, so we don't have illegal Chinese miners out here in the high plains bulldozing, you know, grass pastures to put in hog confinements illegally, but they're still doing it. They're just, or the Saudis, they're not out here bulldozing the desert so that they can raise illegal alfalfa crops, or are they? They're just doing it in a they're doing it, they're going in and they're greasing the wheels of the local politicians and the local regulatory agencies and the alphabet agencies of the government, and they're using that money. They got money. So in the United States, I think they're still doing the same thing they're doing in Africa and South America. They're just doing it they're doing it in a white collar way. They're doing it with, they're in politics. They're using money. They're not just showing up in some unindustrialized country with bulldozers and just, laying a new patch. That's what they're doing in South America. But yeah, it's a crazy, frustrating world that we're living in. The mining that's going on, just, I don't know.
Yeah, it is. It is. And that for as much as we could talk about it all day, I mean, we could keep bringing up examples after example. And I'll circle back around to something I've said probably a dozen times. You can play that game and be on that treadmill, or you can decide that it's time to play a different game and do something else and get off the treadmill and make a decision that you're going to start trying to feed your family, feed your community, and take care of your community, and not be farmed and mined by a multinational conglomerate company like
Yep.
John Deere, like Syngenta, like Monsanto, like Smithfield. I mean, they exist in every corner of our world now, and we've got to watch out for them. I mean, Walmart is no different. Family Dollar, Dollar General. Like, and as much as I hate to say it, Tractor Supply, Orchlands, Baumgars, like they're just trying to get your money, guys. Like,
Yeah.
you know, and okay, maybe Tractor Supply and Orchlands, they're not, some evil big giant corporate conglomerate that's trying to
Well, no,
shut
no,
people
no.
down.
It's people trying to make a living, you know? I mean,
They're not bad guys.
every
They're just
every
trying to
one of
make a living.
those every one of those chains, I'm pretty sure, like you take Baumgars or Tractor Supply or Orscheln's, every one of those chains started out, 30, 40, 50 years ago as some guy in Springfield, Missouri or something started a hardware store that they sold feed and garden supplies and fencing and tools and nuts and bolts and stuff like that. And then they added another store, and then they added another store. And yeah, they're corporate now, but they're not like Smithfield or the Saudi. I mean, they're not out here mining our natural resources and sucking all the life out of our small, slowly dying rural communities. Sometimes those things get started and it's kind of hard to stop them. I mean, I'm pulling myself out of the sod business, but that's not some groundbreaking, earth-shattering movement that I'm making. But I just decided that, it's stupid to waste all this water on this, purely aesthetic, just money pit. I mean, people spend so much money on this grass and so many inputs, and we put so much fertilizer and chemicals on this stuff. And what really got me the last couple of years was this drought. It was government lockdowns, the realization of what's really going on with corporate America, and coupled with the drought. And I just really saw how much people were struggling. And I really lost my appetite for the lawn care business because guys are out here selling cows. They're selling genetics that it has taken 2 and 3 generations to develop because there's no grass and there's no government bailout or subsidy for guys that are struggling to feed cows, selling herds, feedlot operators, small feeders that are going out of business. And then you get these phone calls, and nobody's a bad guy here. I'm not trying to pile on anybody, but it's just it took a mental toll on me to have to field phone calls all day about, I've got this little dry spot in my yard, or oh, there's a little patch in the corner that's kind of brown, and I think we need to reseed it and pour a bunch more fertilizer on and pour more water on, and oh geez, it's just so terrible. And I'm just like, man,
Where's
where is
your
every
perspective?
where's everybody's priorities about I mean, my God, we're gonna run out of our capacity to feed ourselves in 2 generations if we don't start paying attention to what we're doing to our waterways, our freshwater supplies, our soil, and what we're putting in our faces. All of this other stuff is just so arbitrary and meaningless, and I really lost my love for it. And I think my passion became, trying to do things different. um of course, then we were just
So,
haphazardly fell into this soap business and
I,
hemp business. I mean, the last 5 years has just been like, I can't even keep up with all. I can't keep up with all my new ideas and how things, just the amount of information and knowledge that I've been absorbing about what's really going on and how we need to change things. I mean, I was just strolling along life's path, before 2020. I was just
it,
strolling along life's path, just trying to follow that American dream and paying taxes and paying bank interest and going into debt, trying to run a business and just thinking that it was all going to work out someday. And then, it just, everything changed. And then
so,
we
so
just,
the lockdown hit. I
yeah,
watched Fight Club about 300 too many times.
yeah, yeah. And, it was weird. It was so we took this little family vacation to Black Hills in 2018, when things were still normal, when the world was still right. And
Well, 2019 was a great year. It was the
oh,
last good year we all had.
I know last year, yeah, 19 was the last normal year of my life. So in 18, we, we're up there. It's one of these tourist stores, and I bought a couple bars of natural soap because I was just kind of killing time, and it smelled good. And we had the family of six plus the oldest girlfriend with us, and so there were seven of us in the expedition, and grabbed a couple of bars of soap to make the car smell good. And I'm not one to throw stuff away because I thought it was kind of I don't know. I'm not say feminine, but not very masculine to have natural soap. But
Yeah,
it was like
give me back
it
my
had
Irish Spring.
so so I bought these bars, I got them home and I used them because like I said, I'm not one to throw stuff away, and I paid good hard earned money for it. And man, I was like, holy cow, this natural soap is really really nice. Well, at the same time, in 2018, we've got a new farm bill. Every 5 years, we got a new farm bill, and in the farm bill, and I listen to Agri Talk every day, and I listen to Chuck Grassley talk and Chip Flory, and I used to be a big fan of listening to Agri Talk and seeing what's going on in the markets and what's going on in the world, and everybody's talking about how much hemp we import from other countries. It's like a $10 billion a year trade deficit in the United States, and the Farm Bill was going to allow hemp production. And at the same time, I had this ankle injury in a fit of rage on a spray can in my shop driveway one day, and I really screwed up my ankle. And so I started hearing about this CBD stuff, from hemp, and I thought, well, maybe this, So I started by it was 2018 and it was legal now. And I was buying this stuff online and really seemed to help with my ankle, kind of reduce inflammation and things like that, and basically just went away. I never went to the doctor, never did PT or anything like that. Never, of course, that was back in the day when, the wife and I were popping a leave and ibuprofen and stuff like that every day. She's, got a headache every day. And so we started using CBD, and all of a sudden nobody's having daily headaches, and a lot of your little inflammatory aches and pains have gone away. And so the 18 farm bill comes out, and we're at the McCook Farm and Ranch Expo, put on by our friends the Dales. They do the one down in Kansas, they do one in Tech down in Wichita Falls, Texas. And so we were at their show again as our lawn care landscaping business, and we met these guys down the road from us from Colorado, because Darren was trying to promote the hemp industry. And so the 2018 or the 2019, this was in 19 now, McCook Farm and Ranch Expo, it was the Farm Ranch and Hemp Expo, and Darren was really trying to get hemp producers here. So he had some farms and an equipment dealer. He had some CBD guys, have booths here, and I talked to all of them, and really got interested in the business. And I thought, man, that's something I can do out there at my little property. We can have a little hemp grow CBD, and I thought, oh, it would be a really cool opportunity to become vertically integrated. And well, first we kind of thought, we could just grow hemp for, and then sell it to one of these hemp processors, these CBD extractors out in Colorado. Well, 2020 rolls around, and this is before. See, in 19, Nebraska had an experimental program. They only took 11 growers, and it was supposedly random draw. And so it was kind of an experimental year. So they rolled out their official program in 2020. And I wanted to be part of that program. So I mean, I'm sitting at my computer desk that morning that the Department of Ag opened up the website, and and I filled out my application, sent off for my background check at the FBI, and did all that stuff. I mailed off my check to get a license. But before I did that, I was also doing a lot of reconnaissance on the hemp industry. Well, see what happened in 19 from 2018 to 2020. A lot of other states were ahead of Nebraska in the hemp program, and there was a lot of CBD hemp being grown, um, a lot of CBD hemp, and it looked like it was going to be a really good moneymaker. Like you could have a tiny little grow, and you could make a little money. And we were kind of thinking, oh, this would fund maybe some new equipment out here, and maybe pay some debt down. And I mean, we weren't thinking about taking tropical vacations and going to Hawaii or buying a house up in Cody, Wyoming to spend the summer. I mean, we were just like, we could
You
pay
also
some
are
debt.
And you
Yeah,
also
we
put in like 5 pivots worth of crap either.
yeah, it was going to be a tiny little grow. And at that time, you could do, I mean, you could have conceivably done stuff like that with even a small grow, like a 1 acre grow. Well, by that winter, the farm show was in November, and by that winter, things were really going south in the hemp industry. The price of CBD was crashing because you had all these other states that were just because everybody thought, well, if you could make a living off of 1 acre of CBD hemp, well, what could I do with 5 pivots? And so all these farmers across America started growing like 5 pivots of CBD hemp because
Well, you got to
you were
get big or get out.
get big or go home, get big or get out. Same thing. And so the price just the bottom fell out of the market. It just completely fell out. So there I am on February 2nd, 2020, thinking, I don't even know. I'm worried that if I spend $650 on the license and grow this crop, I'm not even going to be able to like drop it on somebody's truck dock in Colorado that they won't call the sheriff on me. I mean, that's what I was worried about as far as what this crop would be worth. But I knew that the finished product was had value. I knew it was therapeutic and I knew it would help people like it helped us. And so I thought, screw it, we're going to do it anyway. And we're just going to become vertically integrated. We're going to grow it. We're going to extract it ourselves, and then we're going to come out with our own product line, and we're going to bottle it and turn it into gummies and have our own products, and just kind of like the direct, kind of like, everybody that's growing home raised beef and selling it directly to cut. They're not, I didn't want to be part of that was my first experience with not wanting to be part of the commodity because I saw what happened with the commodity. It just fell to pieces.
Was it primarily a processing bottleneck?
Um, well, it wasn't a bottleneck. There wasn't a bottleneck. It was just that within 2 years of the 2018 Farm Bill, you went from growing CBD hemp and driving Bentleys to begging people online to buy your flower, your biomass. In 2 years, guys went from buying Bentleys to auctioning it off to anybody that would buy it online. They couldn't find, because the problem was in 2019, there was an article published in, gosh, I can't remember what magazine or newspaper, that in the United States to supply retail demand for CBD products, we needed to grow approximately 30,000 acres of CBD hemp. And in 2019, the United States had 120,000 acres of CBD hemp.
Sounds like the
That
American farmers.
It sounds like American farmers at work. They're trying to feed the world, and we're trying to provide therapy for the world. And we provided way too much therapeutic plants. Well, so we did that, and that's how we started so at the same time, this is what's crazy. At the same time, I had become like obsessed with soap. The winter of 19 into 2020, I had become obsessed with natural soap, and I thought, you know what, it'd be cool. It would be cool if we made soap with hemp seed oil. Okay, so everybody knows, because you've never had anybody on your podcast talk about hemp before.
No.
Um, yeah, so I'm privileged to do that. So what always trips people up is there's lots of different products that you can make from hemp, industrial hemp, and marijuana is a very close. Marijuana and industrial hemp are the same plant. They are both cannabis sativa. The only difference is the breeding. Marijuana has been bred to have very high levels of THC,
That's the
whereas
stuff that gets you. That's the stuff that makes it fun to smoke it.
that's the stuff that is fun. It's fun. Um, don't ask how I know. It helps you sleep.
Research, right?
Research. It helps you sleep. And then industrial hemp is bred more for CBD, which is cannabidiol versus tetrahydrocannabidiol. They're very similar model. CBD molecule is very similar to a THC molecule. And then there's 100+ other cannabinoid molecules. This plant produces so much cool stuff. It's not even funny. So at the same time, I'm just diving into research. Like, I want to know why is CBD therapeutic? Like what is it? You're like, what's going on here? Like, how does this work in the body? What's the chemistry, the body chemistry? And why is the government regulate? Why is the government so scared of this stuff? Why, so that was kind of my first, like, what's going on in the world? Why, it's a free country, right? Like, why can't I grow a plant that is therapeutic? Why can't I grow a plant that can help with anxiety, with stress, with sleep, with inflammatory soreness issues? Why can't you do that? Well, at the same time, I've got this soap hobby addiction going on, and I thought, this is cool for agriculture. This new hemp industry, it's going to change the world. I mean, the guys are going to have a new rotation. They're going to have a new value added stream for their crops. We're going to make biodegradable plastic. We're going to make fuel. We're going to make shirts and t-shirts and shoes. And, I mean, hemp is going to change the world. And I thought it would be really cool if we made a soap, and the soap was going to be, it's going to have hemp seed oil in it because hemp seed oil is so very nutritious for your skin. It's got healthy fats and gamma linoleic oils and antioxidants and fatty acids, and it's really good for your skin. It moisturizes without clogging pores. It's a top-notch oil. And it's not a seed oil, Brian. That the hemp
Wait,
seeds are technically nuts.
okay.
So that's another little fun thing. So because I'm against the seed oils too. There's just way too many seed oils in our diets. You can't go anywhere without consuming sugar and seed oils. It has taken over everything, and it's part of what's destroying our health as a country. But hemp seed oil is not a seed oil. The hemp seed is actually a little nut inside of a shell, and that's why they're so dang healthy. So you're actually, when you're consuming hemp seeds, you're actually consuming a nut.
I okay.
Like almonds, like almonds and macadamia,
I
all
get it.
those healthy nuts, all those healthy
Okay.
nuts.
I'm glad you said almonds.
Oh yeah, don't let's not go on that rabbit hole of almond production,
Well,
because that's another detrimental thing. And I get it. I
no,
don't I don't
I was going to talk about the
if we
oil.
have time, yeah, if we have
I was going
time,
to
we
talk
can
about
go
the
down.
oil because, like, we had to breed almonds, or maybe it wasn't almonds. Maybe it's another kind of nut. But we had to breed them to where they weren't toxic to us.
Hmm.
And so the reason, like, seed oils, like, not all oils created equally. I mean, there's seed oils that aren't processed that don't need to be processed, like hemp seed oil.
Chemically extracted, you is what
Right.
you're yeah,
But,
chemically
but
extracted.
then when we look at, like, uh not going to talk about soybean oil, but like rape, like canola.
Canola, yeah, that's a good one. No, you don't mean good healthy wise. That's a good one to talk about.
I mean, everybody's like, oh yeah, canola. The first thing you hear, or the first thing you think when you hear somebody say canola oil, is heart healthy,
Uh,
right? Because that's what we were all brainwashed in the late 90s and 2000s. Like, yeah, vegetable oil is going to be healthier. Everybody use canola oil because it's going to be healthy. Well, after they extract it, like, there's two or three processes that oil has to go through to be deodorized and
mm-hmm,
detoxified and purified so we can eat it.
mm-hmm,
Like olive oil. Okay. They take the olive pits and they go put them in a press and they smash them. And now you have oil. It
mm-hmm.
doesn't need to go get the toxins removed from it so you can eat it. It doesn't
Absolutely.
need to go undergo some high temperature process to change the molecular structure of the oil so it won't kill you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So there's oils that are fine. It's not, this is another book and I can't remember what it was. Maybe it'll come to me. Um, it's not what's in the food. It's what's been done to the food, and it's
Right.
what's been done to the ingredients.
Right.
So I think that's kind of worth saying.
Well, yeah, and it is, and you're right. I mean, and that's kind of the same thing as it's not just what you're eating, but it's what your food ate also. And some of that, like Fred Provenza talked a lot about that in his book, which I also listened to, which was really good, Nourishment. And yeah, because a lot of these things seem healthy on paper, but a lot of it is the molecular rearrangement and the processing and the chemical extraction. A lot of that stuff is chemically extracted. So back to hemp seed oil, it's not. it's basically like an olive oil. They're just, you go out there and you're seeded, because there's two different types of industrial hemp. There's hemp for CBD, and that's what I was wanting to talk about. So there's CBD oil, and then there's hemp seed oil. So we've got two different kind of types of industrial hemp. You'll have a crop that is seeded, because in hemp we have hemp is not a self-pollinated crop like corn and soybeans. You have male plants and you have female plants. The male plants produce pollen, the female plants produce flower. When that pollen pollinates the flower, you get seeds. And that's all your ditchweed is, basically males and females out there. And then later in the summer and the early fall, when you see those plants that have those huge big clumps on them, that the males are like yellowish lime green, kind of sickly looking, and they don't, those are the males. And then the females usually have those really nice dark green flowers, and then by late summer, early fall, they've got huge clumps of seeds on them. Well, that's where you would get your hemp seed oil. Now, so what we were growing was females. That's where you get CBD oil. CBD uh, cannabinoids come from the female flower parts. Basically the trichomes. The trichomes are these little hair-like structures that are on the sugar leaf, which is the leaf that's around the flower. All the flower parts have these little trichomes, and they're just resinous, sticky little hair-like glands with a little glob on the end of it. And really, what that is it's a self-defense mechanism that the plant produces. So that's why hemp smells. The female plants smell skunky. That's a lot of the terpenes. Well, it is the terpenes. The terpenes and the flavonoids put off these odors that deter, wildlife from eating them. The resin, it's almost like an insect repellent too. Now there are insects that can chomp on your hemp plants, but for the most part, they don't have a lot of plant pests because they've got those self-defense mechanisms. But the cool thing about those trichomes is those trichomes are just loaded with beneficial cannabinoids, plant terpenes, phytocompounds, basically. So, like Fred talks a lot about phytocompounds. Um, and this is what got me going down that path, is learning about the hemp plant, learning about all these different cannabinoids and how they interact in our body. I got kind of fascinated with like the phytocompounds. Well, then we run into the COVID buzz saw, and then we find out that most people probably wouldn't even have gotten sick had they been healthier, had vitamin D. My gosh, there's so much information we have to condense into this, but I start learning about phytocompounds, and it's like, man, and I'm listening to Joel Salatin and Dr. Sina McCullough's podcast, and they're talking about phytocompounds and how what you eat is important, or what your food ate is also important. And then you start listening to like Fred Provenza's, like the goats that are eating the wood rat houses because there's some nutrient in there, and it's like, wow, there's more to your diet than carbs, proteins, and fats. Okay, because that's like our food pyramid was like, well, you have to have so many servings of protein, and you have to have. Well, what about all these phytocompounds? What about my immune system? What about feeding my microbiome in my gut? And so the hemp world was really fascinating because we really have a plant that has all these interesting phytocompounds that are not found in other plants or animals. Um, and what's interesting is the reason that CBD became such a popular product is because, in the 80s and 90s, when our federal government was doing cannabis research, our federal government spent hundreds of millions of dollars in the 80s and 90s doing cannabis research because they were trying to prove that cannabis would cause cognitive decline and brain damage. And so they had all these paid researchers doing all this research. And what they found out was that not only did they find out that cannabis use does not cause cognitive decline and brain damage, but they discovered the endocannabinoid system within our own bodies. And mammals have, all mammals have an endocannabinoid system. And it's interesting how this endocannabinoid system in our body is, it's all connected to our inflammatory response. It's connected to our immune response. It's connected to our nervous system. Our body produces endocannabinoids. And I think it's just like hormones. Everybody's different, everybody's on a spectrum. It depends on your genetics, your environment, your diet, your exercise, whatever, what you do with your life. And the reason that a lot of people would have a good response to cannabinoids is because they're probably not producing enough due to genetics, environment, diet, exercise, things like that. And so, some people would have a really big response like, oh my gosh, I sleep so much better. And, a lot of my old aches and pains are gone. And my mother-in-law was one of them. We built her her own suite in our barn dominium when my father-in-law passed away a few years back. And she moved down here with us, and she's got arthritis and she's on all the typical arthritis medicines, but she still couldn't use our flipper door hand. Well, she could, but it hurt her wrist really bad using our flipper door handles throughout the house. And opening a bottle of water was a task. And so we got her on, CBD oil and some of the topicals that we make. And most of that is gone. And she was, her doctor was, oh, go try this. It's over the counter at the pharmacy. And it didn't work. And all this stuff didn't work. Well, so that was kind of our introduction that man, nature is providing some stuff that we don't need to go to the pharmacy for. That was my introduction to that. So at the same time, we're making soap, and I was gonna make this soap as kind of a promotional gag, or a promotional partner to our little hemp business. That, look, here's one of these products that you can make with hemp, industrial hemp, and it's really good soap. It was kind of my angle. And so then, family starts using it, and friends start using it, and then we started going to the farmers market with it. And then people are like coming down there just to buy soap. They're not even going down there to buy tomatoes and garden veggies. They're coming down there to buy soap. And people are telling us that your soap, that's the best natural soap I've ever. And I spent the whole winter, learning and downloading books, and watching things, online about how to make soap, and what
Watching
ingredients
Fight
work.
Club 53 times.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So learning about the dangers of lye, sodium hydroxide. um, and so we come out of that in 2020, and then all of a sudden, what happens in 2020? The whole world gets turned over on its head, and we're thinking we might have something going here. We need to come up with a name. Like I need to come up with a name. And I hadn't even heard at this point about all the well-known, you know, soaps that are out there for men, and stuff like that. I hadn't even heard of these guys at this point. And we got to come up with a cool name that kind of fits our lifestyle, because we're out here in the high plains of Nebraska. We're kind of laid back. We're kind of, we're not proper gentlemen all the time. I mean, we're just kind of like, we're blue collar, not take ourselves too seriously kind of people. And so we've got two donkeys, Donkey and Elmer, and we're trying to come up with a name, and we just come up with Wild Ass Soap Co., Wild Ass Soap Company, and Wild Ass Hemp Farm. And our logo is a donkey, not an actual wild ass, like an African wild ass, but just a domesticated donkey. But the cool thing about the donkeys is they're kind of representative of like me. So we've got a couple of horses and a couple of donkeys, and it's funny because they're slightly related, the Equus genus, but they're totally different animals. Like, sometimes we run out of, like, sometimes we get busy and we forget, like, the horses need water. Well, who alerts us to the fact that they're out of water? It's not the horses, it's the donkeys. One of them will stand there and he'll kick the tank in groups of threes, like he's sending out an SOS, like he's sending me Morse code for get the frick down here and get us water, dummy. And I'm convinced that the horses would lay down and die. I'm convinced that the horses would lay down and die, and the donkeys will send Morse code for help, because they know that it's weird, because donkeys are domesticated, but not as domesticated as horses. They've still got that, not necessarily like a fight or flight, like a horse, has that fight or flight, like you got to make friends with a horse. You got to trick him into trusting you to work with him, and get him to do the things that you want to do. And once you gain that trust with that horse, he's yours. But with a donkey, I think those donkeys always have that, like, I'm not sure about this guy. Like, oh, I'm going to play nice with him, but I'm going to keep my eye on this guy. And that is my attitude towards like our federal government and our regulatory agencies. It's like, and now these corporations, it's like I don't trust these guys. Like they say, they throw out all these platitudes and slogans, and start all these fake farm advocacy groups and things like that. And it's like it's all just to buffalo everybody into playing into their system that they're just making obscene amounts of money and gaining power and controlling the land and controlling the people. I've got my eye on these guys. I don't trust these guys, and that's so the wild ass is kind of that libertarian kind of, libertarians like to use that snake. It's like I'm using the donkey because he's like a cool guy. He could survive on his own. The horse can't. The horse is so domesticated that, I mean, yeah, there's wild horses out in Colorado and Wyoming and Montana, Nevada, and Utah, but
But the
I don't.
Democrats already had the debate.
Yeah, they do. They do, but they're not a donkey. They're I don't know. I don't
More
know
of
what
a jackass
the
than a
dodo
donkey.
bird. The dodo bird is what they are. And the
I thought it was
Republicans
more
are
of a
just
jackass than a
and the
donkey.
Republicans are just the same. It's just I don't that's why I don't even want to get into politics. They're both captured and controlled regulatory agencies in my estimation. But anyway,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
we started.
We don't have time to get into politics. We need
No,
to.
we don't. We've only got like 15 minutes left or so.
Well, wait, we could have more time, but
Okay.
it's supposed to be like 98 here today, and I've got to get. I got
Oh
like
crap.
Yeah, I got like 3 miles of electric fence I got to go look at, the charger to move, and cows to move. So
So we started making soap, and it kind of went through an evolution too. And I'll hit that really quick because it kind of ties into to Mike. Well, we started making just your regular vegan soap. We were making it out of coconut oil and olive oil and hemp seed oil. And it was really good soap. And and then I kind of had this wild hair. I'm like, why doesn't anybody make lard soap anymore? I mean, I realize people do, but about this time, it was probably a year or so into us making soap, and by that time I had finally, like just me doing the stuff that I do on my computer, all of a sudden my Facebook feed starts filling up with the big guys, the Sasquatch, soap and all that stuff. I start seeing all that stuff. And then we've also got a big soap company here in Nebraska, in Hastings. There's another big soap company that's in Whole Foods all across the country, and they're big, and they're palm oil. They're like a true vegan soap, and more power to them. They send a lot of money to like Africa. They, like, every bar you buy, they send a bar. They pay for a bar in these African villages, and they do really good work. But I don't want to be like everybody else. I want to be different. And I started going like, why aren't there any like really popular nationwide known brands that are making lard soap and or beef tallow soap? So we started making lard soap, and we're getting it off the Cisco truck, right? We're not even going to go there, but we're literally getting it off the Cisco
hey,
truck.
you got to start
You
somewhere.
got to start somewhere. Actually, it was Cashway, but it's kind of the same thing. And so we're getting this lard off there, and we do the Nebraska State Fair, not on our own, but through Grow Nebraska, which is it's kind of like a nonprofit chamber of commerce for Nebraskan made products. That's kind of what they are in a nutshell. And they do a lot of business trainings and help entrepreneurs do well, anyway, they've got a massive booth at the state fair, and you can pay to be part of that. So we took 5 lard bars of our lard based bars, because they're not purely lard, they're mostly lard. We use a unique combination of ingredients, because all these different ingredients have different attributes that we want in our soap. But lard would be the main ingredient. And then I have 2 of my non-lard vegan bars. And all you do is go set up your booth, and then you go about your daily business. And our state fair is like 3 hours away. So we go down, set it up, come back 11 days later, tear it down, and I'll be danged. Almost every one of our lard bars was wiped out, and almost every single vegan bar was still sitting there. And I'm like, hey, that I didn't expect that. Well, we live in Nebraska, so it makes sense. And I think, and I, so that I'm like, okay, so I can see something happening here. I think there's a place where we can stand out as being different in the marketplace. So we went ahead and started developing more and more lard bars, but we're still buying it off the Cashway truck. And then I meet Mike Calicrate for the first time at one of Star Expo's shows down in Kansas, and when it was still in Great Bend. And got to
I
meet
wish I
Mike.
would have gone to that one. Like that was what, last year or 2 years ago?
Well, that this year, 2023, was the first year they moved the Great Bend show to Hutch. And
Yeah, I
before I
remember that one.
yeah, that's a good one. Thank you for that, by the way. Um, but I met Mike and then met him again at the McCook show. And, so Mike and I kind of struck up these conversations. And at the same time, we're going through this whole COVID thing and everybody's sick. And I'm out here listening to the conspiracy theorists when they were getting just drugged through the media. I'm listening to all the conspiracy theorists who have basically been all uh, uh,
Right?
they've been right. Yeah, everybody that was a dumb conspiracy theorist has been right. They've been vindicated 100%. And we're looking at vitamin D, and it's like they're all these scientists that have been decredited and disinformationed and banned from social media are saying if we would have just started giving everybody vitamin D, like 2/3 of the people that got sick wouldn't have got sick. And then I learned that, of course, I worked for the guy that raised hogs. We raised them outside, out in the dirt lots in the sunlight, and then I start diving into this research, and it shows that like pasture raised pigs have up to 9 times more vitamin D in their fat than these factory raised pigs, simply because they spend most all of their entire life outside, and these factory pigs spend almost their entire life inside with no sunlight. Not to mention the fact that they've got some sort of a mono scientific diet that's based on maximum return for the corporation that's farming them in these warehouses versus a pasture raised pig that is an omnivore, might be rooting up roots and worms and grubs and stuff, has a more of an omnivore diet, right? So I got to talking to Mike, and I'm like, so could I buy lard from you? And he's like, yeah, we sell lard. And I said, could I buy like hundreds and hundreds of pounds? Like, can you keep up with that? He laughs. He's like, yeah, we can keep up with that. Because I was really into what he was doing. I'm still fascinated by Mike. He's such a cool individual. He's the reason that I found your podcast in the first place, because after I met Mike Calicrate and talked to him for a while and listened to that man talk, give a speech similar to the one you and I gave at the last Kansas Ag Show. I'm like, man, I gotta hear this guy talk. And I was just getting into podcasts, listening to podcasts at the time, and so I'm searching Spotify for podcasts that I'm searching for Mike Calicrate. Like, I know this guy has given more talks. He sure, and Ranching Reboot pops up, and that's how I found your podcast, because I was searching for Mike Calicrate. So fast forward, so I'm like, okay, we're going to start using your lard because I know your production system. I know where your hogs come from. I know they're just across the border in Kansas. They're outside in dirt lots, and I know that's going to be healthy pork fat because vitamin D can be absorbed through the skin. Okay.
Okay.
So I want to make a soap that is healthy. We've never used palm oil. When I first started using natural soap, I found a company in Lincoln, Nebraska that did not use palm oil because of the environmental disaster that is palm production in the tropical 10 degrees north or south of the equator, and what that has done to local ecosystems, local economies, the planet. And I thought, man, I had no idea. I had no idea that orangutans were endangered in Malaysia and Indonesia because of palm production. I had no idea.
Because of the
And
renewable fuel standard.
uh, yeah,
Like we got to
yeah,
be green, we got to be renewable, we got to have a renewable fuel standard.
we
Well,
have to take tallow and lard out of everything and use palm oil because, well, it's a plant.
yeah, yeah,
We're,
because animal agriculture is ruining the environment.
and one thing and another thing I want to hit on, and I know a lot of people, you either love Yellowstone or you hate it, the show, because
Don't
it's a fun watch, and it's a beautifully filmography or filmatography, whatever they call it. But it's kind of a goofy, like that's not what ranching really is. I mean, it's like Sons of Anarchy for cowboys, and that's not what it's really like. But there was that one scene where Costner said, when he was talking to the vegan gal, the animal rights activist, Summer, whatever her name is, and there's that line, and it's not Costner, it's Taylor Sheridan. He he's the one that's putting these lines in that. He's like, how many animals, or how cute does an animal have to be before you give a shit whether it dies for your food production? Because she's against, raising cattle, raising pigs, sheep, goats,
Exactly.
whatever. But yeah, and so there's that was a profound line in in that show, because I'm like, well, yeah, every time you go out and spray a field, we spray a field with glyphosate, we're killing soil microbes. Every time we spray a field with fungicides, we're killing fungi. That's a living organism. Every time we run a disc or a plow or a cultivator or a rototiller through a field, we're killing worms, we're mice, snakes, soil microbes, you name it. I mean, a teaspoon of soil, healthy soil, has like 8 billion soil microbes in it.
Yeah.
It's an unbelievable number. It's unfathomable almost. And so that was another thing. It was like, yeah, I mean, this whole greenwashed system that we live in of propaganda and corporate, sleight of hand. People, when people think that palm oil is a sustainable and more green alternative to just using an animal byproduct like beef tallow and lard, is just, it's insanity. I can't even wrap my hands around the stupidity of it, because we're doing so much damage. And there again, Brazil, you can do whatever you want. Like, we can do what we want in our land. Who are we to tell them what to do? But man, if they bulldoze the whole Amazon just to raise more, you know, skinny cows and palm oil, what's going to happen to the planet? But back to the tallow and the lard. So we started buying our animal fats, or pork lard specifically, from Calicrate, and started making our soap. And it's just really good soap. And I got to thinking one day, I'm like, well, why don't we use beef tallow too? That'd be kind of cool. um there's probably more beef tallow out there than there is pork lard. It definitely is. And so I talked to Mike about it, and he's like, yeah, we can supply you with all the beef tallow you want. And this beef tallow, I got to tell you, it is just beautiful. That's all we cook with now. So the cool thing about making soap is I've got like deep freezers in my shop that are just full of not only my I've got a Angus Wagyu beef from a local guy here in McCook, and then I got John's beef in the freezer. But right next to that, I've got 5 gallon buckets of pork lard and beef tallow. And when it's time to kick on the fryer to fry fish or French fries, I mean, it's beef tallow, and it is so freaking tasty. This stuff is so. I'm making soap with it, and then I'm scooping it out, putting it in my fryer, and I'm cooking food with it too. It is just, and it's so healthy. But this whole lie about the sugar lie, I just can't even wrap my head around. And I think that's where we are in politics and policy for this nation too. When you listen to books or read books like Wasteland, you find out that everything is a sham. Like, I don't even know where. It is so frustrating to me that it's so hard to find the honest God truth about what's really good for the soil, what's really good to put in your body, what's really good policy for the country. Because on both sides of our political spectrum are corporations that are buying these experts off with money, just like the sugar lie. We can now trace it back to the 1960s. It was two Harvard scientists that were paid by the sugar lobby $50,000 to say that saturated fat is causing heart disease, not sugar. It took us 60 years to find out, oops, those guys were lying. They were
It's
lying. Yeah, they were lying. And look at the health of our nation now. We everything went fat free this and fat free that, and homogenized, oils and seed oils, because we got to get rid of the saturated fat. Now everybody's fat and out of shape, and dying of type 2 diabetes and chronic diseases. And it's just, it's mind boggling. And
it blows my mind. Like, it's such a strange time in history that we have obese people that are classified as in poverty and on government assistance.
mhm.
Like, that's just so weird. It's just so strange. Like, at no other point in human history has society been so embarrassingly wealthy
Mhm.
that we have unemployed obese people.
Yeah. No, and nobody's the bad guy again. Nobody's the bad guy. Nobody has really chosen. No one chooses to be unhealthy or to be obese. I mean, yeah, I mean it's a choice, but well, it's just kind of like I was saying. Like I know now what I should be eating, but it is so damn hard. I mean, try to get yourself off of sugar. Try to go to your grocery store and buy milk and bread and beans or whatever the most simple thing you can think of for a poor man's diet, and try to get away from sugar. Just try it. It's in everything. There's like what 17 different names or 70 or something, what like high fructose corn syrup, dextrose, maltodextrose. I mean, it's
Corn
just there.
syrup solids,
Yeah, I
glucose.
just try to get away from processed foods. Try to get away from stuff that was raised with glyphosate on it. Try to get away from sugar. It is so dang hard. And so like we're trying to grow our own food. We're growing potatoes, and we're growing everything organically. That was the other thing about growing hemp that was kind of fascinating. It's like I really enjoyed growing hemp for 3 years. This year we're taking a year off because we've got so much extracted oil in the warehouse at Sweetwater Hemp in Pleasanton, Nebraska, that I could go 3 more years without growing a hemp crop and still have plenty to make gummies and CBD oils and things like that. So we're growing potatoes, 3 different kinds of potatoes. We're growing our corn, like our Jimmy Red corn, our white popcorn, some lots of sweet corn. We're growing a whole buttload of green beans because our family loves green beans, and I've got a Harvest Right freeze dryer, so we can put those up and freeze dry them, and they're still tasty. Like eating green beans in the middle of the winter that were grown organically and freeze dried. They don't have that firmness texture, after they've been reconstituted with water, but they
Right.
still have that flavor, and they're still like I grew up. I Green beans used to trigger my gag reflex from the time I was a kid. Green beans made me like gag, like I was going to throw up. The taste was just so nasty. I never ate green beans. Well, now I can eat green beans by the bushel because we're growing them ourselves, and they're so much tastier than canned green beans from the store. And I want everybody to experience that. But this year has been a good case in point. Like we were trying to develop some market gardens, and I planted just a ton of asparagus. The last 2 years we've been putting asparagus crowns in the ground, and I've been thinking about all these ways that we can do this market garden and have our own little, because we've got a little soap store, a little soap and CBD store out at the farm here. So we have customers and we have eggs. We have raise our own chickens, and people coming out every day for stuff. And I thought, we can just kind of piggyback that on and try to have people come out and eat healthy green beans and salad greens and potatoes and things like that. But this year, we just got so busy. I'm still trying to finish my hoop house. I've got tomatoes and peppers and radishes and lettuce growing in a frame right now. It still doesn't have plastic on it. We were going to try to build the end walls this weekend, but we still have another chicken coop that we have to build because we've got 25 uh, growing hens that are ready to join the other already adult laying hens, and we don't have a big enough chicken coop for the new group. So there's just so many things to do. I can't even keep up.
Hey, let's take a quick break and then we'll come back and we'll wrap this up.
Okay, sounds good.
And we're back.
Okay, so yeah, we want to wrap this up. And I guess I just want to say, kind of here at the end, what we've been kind of building up to is with this soap. Um, Everything's frustrating. It's hard to know where to go for the actual truth of information of what's good for the soil, the air, the water, your body, the animals, because there's so much corporate confusion out there. And so what can we do? I saw Greg Gunthorpe one time here last year was on Facebook. Like he's like, I don't know why we keep doing this. He was reaching that point of frustration. I've never met Greg, but we're Facebook friends, and I we've commented back and forth on certain things, and he's just like, it just seems like all these trips to Washington D.C. and all these things that we do, it just doesn't seem like anything's ever going to change for the better. And I said, you know what? I said, don't give up, because I said, I don't think you realize how much influence you have over people that you've never met. You and I have never met. And I said, you've greatly influenced my thinking, and you've greatly influenced my life changes in my business, the changes in my business life that I've made, as well as Mike Calicrate, Del Fike. You had Del on the program a couple months ago. He was another one that was kind of a catalyst for my change when Del started telling me about. He really, when he started talking about how he put it, where our soil is on life support. We have dumbed our soil down so much that we have to continue to pump it full of synthetics to get any kind of production out of it. And I'm like, wow, all these dots connected. So where does Wild Ass Soap and Wild Ass Hemp Farm fit into that? I can't go out and be a spokesman. Um, you know, I can't really go give talks. I mean, I can talk on a podcast, but I think podcasts are where I think the podcast world is the only place where there's really truth right now, because it's not the CEO of Tyson out there talking. It's not the paid industry experts that are skewing their research for their person that's paying the bills. It's real people coming out and talking. It's real boots on the ground. So I think the doing podcasts is where there's still truth, but where what we're trying to do with our soap is say, look, this is what palm oil does. Just one example. This is what palm oil does. These people that are out there saying that they're using ethically sourced and sustainably sourced palm. Well, how do you know? It comes from Malaysia. Where did you go see this plantation at? How do you know it's ethically sourced? How do you know there's not slaves, indentured servitude on this farm? Our fats are coming from these cattlemen in Northwest Kansas, family farms, family ranches. That's where our fats are coming from. Yeah, we still use some coconut oil. We still use some olive oil. We use the hemp seed oil and some shea butter. And we buy our shea butter directly from a company. Well, it's ethically sourced, and you can get on their website and see these gals have formed a cooperative there in Africa that they work with this Canadian company. They set their own wages and they set their own prices, and I pay a lot more for this shea butter than I could through a standard supplier. But I just like the idea that I'm helping people. We're helping people. But the 70% of our soap is a locally regionally sourced beef tallow or pork lard, and it's healthy because these animals aren't factory animals. But what we're doing with the soap is we're, like Mike Calicrate really got me when he started talking about how our rural communities are in a state of decline, the vulture capitalism that's happening, the resource mining that's happening, and it's not just mining water and mining soil, it's mining money out of these communities. I mean, we're going into all these corporate entities. Mike was telling me here this last winter that there's a new development going in Colorado Springs, and he talked to a local store owner who wanted to open up a second location in Colorado Springs at this new business development, and they were told that local small businesses were not welcome. The only businesses that were going to be welcome there are corporate franchises and corporate chains, because they can pay higher rents because they externalize the cost of labor and production, and they utilize government subsidies, like just our welfare system,
It's
for
also
local.
lower. It's going to be a lot less risk for the developer.
And I get that, and that's the thing, because they can't pay higher rents, and but it's like,
It's not
just
that
like
they
a.
just pay higher rents. It's, if JC Penney's, if I'm a developer and I'm building 5,000 homes, or however many, building 1,000 home in a master plan community where there's going to be a hospital, there's going to be schools, and there's going to be stores, shopping, gas stations, whatever. If I'm developing that, I want to make that as attractive as possible.
Mhm.
And okay, not the mindset I'm in currently, but a big business mindset, big developer
Yeah.
mindset that guy probably is in. Yeah, he's going to select businesses. He's going to work with big businesses that have a track record of not going broke and not closing,
Yep. Yep.
because
And
he wants to do the best he can. Is he
yeah,
being a bad guy? No.
no,
He
no.
wants to build a community, and he wants to, he's trying to feed his family too. So he's going to go with the most sure thing, the thing that makes the most sense.
Yep.
And
And nobody's the bad guy. It's bad for a lot of people, but like you said, he's not the bad guy. These guys are not. At some point, some of these companies, they are bad guys. There are bad guys at Smithfield, and there are bad guys at Tyson, and there are bad guys up there that are intentionally preying, they're intentionally mining because they know they can. And but down, when you go to Walmart, your local Walmart, there's no bad guys there. There's no bad guys in that building. Those are people in your community, and we're all trying to make a living. But the thing that we're trying to do with Wild Ass Soap is we're trying to, we sell retail online, we sell in our store, but we also do wholesale. And right now we've got wholesale in, I don't know, 5 or 6 different states. It's nothing huge. I mean, we've got like 2 places in Texas that, well, I just shipped some out a couple days ago to Granbury, Texas, down. It's like southwest of Fort Worth. We've got some soap for sale down at the stockyards in Fort Worth. We've got it for sale in Nakona, Shamrock, and now in Granbury. We've got some soap for sale in Kansas, Colorado. Ranch Foods Direct in Colorado Springs, both locations sell our soap because we're using their. It's pretty cool. So we're trying to grow our wholesale, and the thing that we're doing is, we're trying to grow this with other small businesses. Let's just say I got a phone call from Walmart tomorrow, and they said, we think what you're doing is cool. We want to sell your soap. I'd have to say no. I just don't like, like I said, if I go to my local Walmart, there's no bad guys in there. Those are my friends, neighbors, community members. There's no bad guys there, but I don't like what they do because they tell you what your cost, they don't tell you what your cost of production is, but they certainly tell you what you're going to sell their product to. And what they've done with vendors for 30 years is they've put so many people out of business because they tell you what they're gonna. It's just like the story that Mike tells about John Tyson. He cornered him outside the bathroom one day and said, told, this is what you're doing and this is what's going on. And John says to Mike, he says, we don't set the prices. Walmart tells us what we're going to sell our meat for. Walmart tells us we have to sell to Walmart, and so we have to figure out how to screw everybody downstream from the chain so that we can make a profit. Well, gosh, what kind of world are we living in? That's the kind of thing that's going on. So hell no, I'm not going to sell my soap to Walmart. I'm going to sell my soap to Western stores, gun stores, local grocery stores. Like we've got Gary's Superfoods here in North Platte, McCook, and Broken Bow. They sell our soap. We sell a lot of soap through Gary's Superfoods. It's a locally owned, grocery store. And yeah, we sell it in boutiques and all over the place. But what's really exciting is we just pulled the trigger on a big cargo trailer, a bumper pull cargo trailer. We've been dreaming about having this mobile soap shop, so we can go to. Well, we're not going to use it at the state fair. We have our own booth at the Nebraska State Fair this year, so we'll see about 1 million people at the Nebraska. Or no, we'll see. Gosh, what is it? 300,000 people on average at the Nebraska State Fair. Someday I'd like to do the Iowa State Fair because there you'll see 1 million people. And then we're going to try to do the RCAF National Convention up in Rapid City this summer. A gal from RCAF reached out to us, and I think maybe we have
Very
some
cool.
common friends. Yeah, so we're going to try to do that. I think our trailer is going to be ready for that. So we're going to have this mobile store. We're going to kind of build a little living quarters into the front half because we've got, kids and some of these places. I think if we try to start doing music festivals, some of us are going to be camping in the trailer. So we're going to kind of put the front half as a camper and the back half is going to be a really cool, kind of like a rustic, because we're all about the West. I mean, we really like the architecture and style of Western art and Western homes, and like Wyoming and Colorado, I fit right in. At least the old parts of Colorado, not the new corporate chain parts of Colorado, but
It's stay off the front range.
yeah, exactly. Go up in the mountains, but so we're gonna have this really cool mobile soap, and of course we'll have our CBD products in there too. But that's I guess that's where we fit in. Is we're advocating for the farm and ranch gate. We're trying to be an extension of what Mike Calicrate advocates for, because we know we can make a valuable product with the animal byproducts that is definitely more sustainable than palm oil that's grown halfway across the world in eco-sensitive areas. I mean, just think if we had less packer concentration and we had more regional plants, how much more tallow and how much more pork lard. Because these little plants, like in your hometown, I mean, they're not capturing any of that. They don't have the time and the means for it. I think there's a lot more waste Um, because they don't have like Calicrate's got a pretty nice facility there, and so they make really high quality beef tallow and pork lard. They're making pies. He's got a meat pie maker that works for him. That the guy called me one day talking about our tallow and lard order, and he's got that mountain pie company. They make he's a Australian or New Zealander, and they make meat pies, and they use
I haven't
he
heard of
so he,
that one.
yeah,
You
he
told
works
me about that.
he works part time there, and then he's also got that mountain pie company. And then they've got some other local soap companies that sell their soap inside of Ranch Foods Direct too, because they use but it's such a cool thing. And I love Mike's idea about that those food villages, that they're he had one. He was on your podcast one time talking about it, and then of course the interest rates started going up and construction costs the last 2 years. It kind of put a kibosh on that for a while. For now, it's not dead, but it's on hold. But just places where we just want to advocate for small family operations. We want to advocate for local agriculture. The farm to table people. Make more partnerships with other people like Mike Calicrate that might have a regional, direct to consumer sort of a system that we can partner with as we grow our business. Maybe we will get to a point where Mike can't supply us with all of our tallow and lard. I don't know. It'd be kind of cool to find out, but that's what we want to do. And that's kind of like goes back to Greg, like there's no superhuman out there. There's nobody out there that's on a farm or a ranch that's doing their own processing, raising their own animals, that's got time to go out there and try to change the world. But like I told Greg, I said, you don't know who's out there listening and whose life you're affecting. And we all just need to keep at it. We're not going to be able to elect a president that's going to go in and just change everything. Some people think they can. I think it's never going to happen. Um, we're never going to be able to get these corporations out of politics that control everything, but we can damn sure put a dent in it, and we can get more people. There's a lot more of us than there are of them. There's
Yeah.
a lot more of the Joe Blow, the blue collar guy, the guy that's living in a rural. We just have to keep advocating the truth, telling people what's really going on, instead of listening to all the propaganda and the greenwashing, and try to support each other in our small businesses and small farms. And that's what we try to do. We got a little bit busy. We seasonally get busy with lawn care, but we're kind of back in the mind frame. I mean, I've been making soap all week this week in the shop. It's really hot out there. It's like a sweatshop now, but um, we just have to keep helping each other out.
Yep. I'm with you.
And oh yeah, so the thing I was supposed to bring up really quick was one of the things. So we've struggled. I think the SAS. It's kind of funny because it's like I'm not a marketer, right? I'm former agronomist, former lawn guy, soap maker, tiny farmer, growing my own food. I'm not a social media influencer, and I'm not a marketer. We just spent a bunch of money last year on some marketing that did not work at all, and I'm still kind of paying for it. Um, and it's funny because it's like I just want to be a soap maker. I just want to make good, healthy, fun soap that people like, and I don't try to trick people. Yeah, we use fragrances in our soap. Some of our soap we use, essential oils, and some of them are just fragrances. And we buy good, high quality fragrances that are paraben free and phthalate free. And I have honestly, I've gone through the MSDS sheets, and I've looked up every single ingredient of every fragrance that we use. The vast majority of these ingredients in these fragrances are plant terpenes and oils isolated from different plants, and some of them are really long chemical names, and I research all these chemicals and see what the EWG website, and I look up the safety, and I want to make sure that we're putting out good stuff, but I don't try to hide it like the big soap company in the United States does, where it makes it they on their website they make it look like everything's all natural, and they like the tone of this fragrance is like cedar wood and cinnamon and stuff like that. But then you go down to the where they bury the truth, and it's just a synthetic, it's just a regular fragrance, but it's got those tones, but they make it look like those are the ingredients, and those aren't actually the ingredients. And I'm like, that's not us. I mean, if you want to use something all natural, we've got that product. But like we've got a soap that smells like espresso. It smells like coffee. And I like it. It's not my favorite one, but we're not trying to hide anything from anybody. And um, I can't remember where I was going with that. It happens to us all the time, us
Yep.
old guys.
All right.
But
So
oh yeah, so the other thing is, yeah, so I'm not a marketer, but I think the funny thing is I think like these other big companies, what they are, they're a marketing company that sells soap because they're so good at marketing. Like most of their budget is marketing, and their soap is kind of like subpar. And we're different. Like we're making soap. We want to make really good soap, but we suck at marketing. Like I have no idea what to do for marketing. I don't know what direction to go. I don't know how to spend my money in marketing. And everybody's out there to get your money. That's they just every I had like last year we had all these marketers coming at us, and everybody had a different plan. And all they want to do is sell you something. That's all they care about. They don't care if I sell a single bar of soap. They just want a 6 month contract that's going to cost $13,000, and then they didn't have to like even sweat a single drop of sweat to make that money. And I'm out here sweating bullets because, it's not working. So one of the things that we wanted to do is set up an affiliate program. And I've had a lot of people asking me about it. And I kind of struggle because I do my own website, and there's another thing that I'm not, educated in and versed in, but I'm trying to run my own website, and it's a pretty decent website, and it
I'm
could be
trying to do
better.
my own too, and it's not easy, folks. If you
Yeah,
think it's easy to
it's
make your
old.
own website,
It's not easy. I mean, it's easy to make a website, but to make one that works good, that there's a lot of work involved. So we've got the affiliate program. Now, anybody that wants to be an advocate for Wild Ass Soap or a salesman for Wild Ass Soap just has to go to our website and sign up as an affiliate, and you can make money. Um, just like you do with like the boba links. We like those. We always keep them in the house in stocks. A lot of times they're a lunch replacement for us because we're busy on the go, and it's a good, doesn't have added sugar, no preservatives. It's fermented grass-fed beef. I love it. They're so tasty.
they just
And
sent me like 10 packs
yeah,
as part of my sponsorship deal. So I'm,
you're lucky. Well, you're getting soap too, right?
yeah,
I
yeah,
was a little
that's
I
what you
was a little
said.
late on that, but if it hasn't shown up yet, you're probably going to see it Monday or Tuesday. I was a little
That,
bit late. I didn't get it done before we went to Wyoming, so I had to do it this week when we got back and trying to get caught up. But I
that's
believe.
okay. I'm out of deodorant. Like just it was the night before last.
Oh crap, I didn't send any.
That's a fine. I'll get on the website and I'll get some
Okay.
bought. But,
Well, I believe
uh,
in value for value. One of my other favorite podcasts, and I don't listen to him all the time, is the Podfather. Adam Curry and
okay.
the No Agenda podcast. It's a really good podcast, and they believe in the value for value. They don't charge um like some podcasts, and I've tried that Patreon thing. I've tried it twice, and for some reason it never goes through. And I thought, I'll just start sending you soap on a 3 month subscription basis. I'll send you soap, and that is my value for like I get a value out of your podcast, and so I want to send you something for the work that you do that helps us out. The guests that you have, there's always something of value. Every single guest you've had on has had some value to the decisions that I make and the things that I want to do.
Thanks.
So there's good value in that,
I
and it's
try to
worth.
put in a lot of effort to making sure I have a good guest. The host, yeah, we'll worry about him
Well,
later.
this one you really fell off on this one. I don't know what you're.
Yeah, I
I
don't
don't
know.
know how you're gonna make up for this one.
Yeah, I don't know. Nobody's gonna listen to it. I'll lose my whole subscriber base.
So
Uh,
yeah, you can be an affiliate. Anybody can be an affiliate. I now bear with me. We're gonna have to figure this out. We're gonna have to grease these wheels a little bit because I
okay, well,
guarantee you they're gonna be a little squeaky.
there. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. I got set up on. I set up my link on your affiliate program last night
Yesterday,
yesterday
yeah.
when you sent that to me. Okay, so I'm gonna put that link in the show notes,
Okay.
and I'm also gonna like, and that'll just say buy wild ass soap here.
Yep.
Click that. But while you're there on the Wild Ass Soap website, you can also click around and find the affiliates tab and fill out for your own affiliate program, right?
Yep.
And
Anybody can be an affiliate.
and you guys don't just have soap, and we mentioned deodorant. Um,
Ranch balms are really popular too. We
I,
so we make a balm.
you got to put a little bit of you got to firm that up just a little bit so I can use it for beard balm, buddy.
Yeah, I got to figure something out. There's a lot of cool things that I want to do. Beard balm's one of them. I just need to. Yeah, we time. Time is the elusive resource that there's just never enough of.
Yes.
But we used to have a lotion. We still have a lotion, and we were just buying a lotion base because people were like, "Oh, do you have a lotion?" Yeah, I'll buy this base, this all natural lotion base, and then we'll add our fragrances to it, so you can kind of have your lotion and with your soap. Well, then we decided that the beef tallow is such a healthy animal fat that we want to make an all natural, like a non lotion kind of a skin moisturizer. So we basically make a real simple ranch balm, is what we called it, because we know exactly where this animal fat comes from. It comes right off the ranches in Northwest Kansas. We know we shake the hands. We're out there shaking the hands with the people that are growing this animal fat that is fantastically natural and healthy skin moisturizer. So we make this ranch balm with jojoba oil, beef tallow, and hemp seed oil and some fragrance. And it's been really popular. We're getting ready to put it in new packaging that's going to be better, so that the oils don't kind of like seep out the lid. Those little metal tins are kind of hard to open sometimes, and there's no seal on them. So the oils can kind of osmosis themselves out of
Yeah.
that lid to can contact area. So the new plastic containers will have that foam insert, and it'll keep the oils inside better. Not that it's liquid oils, but it's just, yeah, you know what I mean. It just somehow that oil finds a way out, when you don't have a seal on there. So,
Yeah. Yeah. All
but
right.
yeah, we've got all that stuff on there. So yeah, anybody can be an affiliate, and then you've got your own affiliate. Now that's the thing we got to figure out. I just want to, we're going to figure this out over the next few weeks. When people start signing up, you've signed up, to make sure that you can access your dashboard and see what your payouts are going to be. But yeah, anybody, it's kind of like the wholesale. We've got all these stores, not a lot of stores, but we've got stores all over the country that keep selling our soap and keep coming back for more for their little stores. And it's just a good thing to do. I just love working with other small business owners. Everybody's out here fighting in the trenches, trying to support a family and make a good life for themselves, and we want to help be part of that.
Yep. Well, I would use your soap even if you weren't sending it to me. I would happily give you money for your soap because it's a good product and I believe in what you're doing. And you can find links to Wild Ass Soap. I'll find the rest of your social links.
Yeah, we're on
Through them in the
Facebook.
show notes.
Find us on Facebook at Wild Ass Soap, or Wild Ass Hemp Farm. Follow us there. We're on Instagram. It's wild_soap_ass_co. So I think if you just search it, you can find it. So we're on, and we're trying to do more social media. Sometimes we get a little bit Facebook burnout, but we're trying.
Social media is hard. It's evil. I don't
It
like it
is.
sometimes, but
It's easy to get burnout on it too.
yes,
Very easy. Yep.
yes.
Well, thank you, Brian, for having me on. I told the family a year ago, I was like, wouldn't that be cool if someday we get noticed enough that like we were asked to be on the Ranching Reboot podcast? That would be so cool. Like that would be like a milestone for our little company to be on somebody's podcast that's had on, all these really fantastic, interesting guests that are doing amazing things. So I did it. I can
You're
quit
there.
now. I'm there.
You're there.
No, I don't want to stop. I want to keep going. I want to get on Rogan someday. Wouldn't that be cool? I want Mike Callicrate to be on Rogan. That's my hope and dream. I want Joe Rogan to invite Mike Callicrate down to Austin and have him on the podcast. I think that would be as or more eye opening than when Will Harris and Joel Salatin were on there. Boy, that.
Or what about Calicrate and Greg Gunthorpe?
Oh, heck yeah.
Like, and
That.
who would be the fourth one? Who would be in the fourth chair?
Ooh.
I mean, I'm not going to put myself there. I'm not that arrogant, but who would be in the fourth chair?
Well, I like Dell, and they've got their Grazemaster workshop going on next week in Seward, Nebraska. We were planning on attending it, and I need to send Dell a message. Well, I've got so much stuff going on. We took a few days off to go to Wyoming, and I've got some projects that are in the mix, and my daughter's got a appointment in Lincoln next week on one of those days. I just can't make it work. But Dell, he's not a well known. He's not well known like Mike Callicrate is, but he's really doing it's people like Dell in the Grazemaster group. I met him at the Cattlemen's Classic. We had a booth set up at the Cattlemen's Classic a couple of winters ago, and he introduced himself to me and invited us out to a little gathering that they had on some guy's farm outside of Kearney there that week. And it really hit home. It's like, here's a guy that's not, him and his group aren't really well known, like Greg Gunthorpe. He's not going to Washington, D.C., but he gets it. He knows what's going on. He's trying to help people, through family, faith, and community, to have healthy soils, healthy families, healthy food, profitability. They're trying to put profitability back in the farm. He's just got a different approach. He's got a very, well, you had him on the program. Dell's a really nice guy. He's a really nice guy. And I mentioned to you, this is a guy you should have on your podcast. And so I really like what they're doing. I like supporting them. I probably will reach out to him and see if there's some way I can support their event next week, even though we're not going to be there as a vendor / sponsor, because I do like what they're doing. I think what they're doing is insanely important for the future of our kids and our rural communities and our water and our soil and our food. It's extremely important what they're doing. So I don't know. I don't know if he's already had, Joel and Will on. So yeah, I don't know who'd fill that fourth chair.
The things that my network always kind of has said, not has always kind of said, that the feedback that I kind of got through my network and the people that I talked to a lot about, the Joel Salatin episode on Rogan and the Will Harris episode on Rogan was kind of the same thing. Mm-hmm. Joe doesn't know the questions to ask to really pull the story out of these guys.
Right.
And I get that. And I was sitting here listening to you, kind of talk about Dell, and I thought, Gabe Brown. I think Gabe Brown would be in that fourth seat on the Rogan podcast better than Del Fick, because Gabe has lived it. He's lived it from, going down the commodity path all the way to where that ends, where he was going to have to quit farming and make a decision and change.
That's true.
Now, he's one of the godfathers of regenerative agriculture, and
that's true.
Extremely outspoken. And I think a conversation with the three of those guys, you have somebody that's going to be well-versed in the land management and the ecology and what it takes to go from something that's incredibly degraded to something that's really good in a very brittle, low rainfall environment. You've got a guy like Greg Gunthorpe, who watched the hog industry collapse, but has stayed in it and stayed solvent through the whole thing.
Yep.
And then you've got Calicrate, who watched the whole beef, he lived through the whole beef industry collapse. Yep. And he stays solvent throughout it and has been fighting against packer concentration the whole time. So,
or how about outside the box, that doctor down in Wichita that you had on a year and a half or 2 years ago? I can't remember his name.
My doctor, Dr. Davis.
Is he he's the one that was on your podcast, right?
Yeah, I think he's the only doctor I've had on. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah, just that'd be something different too, because he can tie in to this alternative kind of health model, the functional medicine. He can tie that into our diets and why the regenerative farming is needed, and why, so that might be a different, because then that's how you tie it all into, because why do we need all this soil health? Why do we need all this animal health? We need it for our own health,
because we're all made of the same stuff.
Yep.
Just arranged in slightly different ways.
Stardust. We're all made of stardust.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. So, man, it's 2.5 hours. We've been for a long time.
Thank you again. Hope to see you soon sometime. Hopefully we'll be down, and maybe we'll be at the Kansas State Fair next year. We're going to try to get this soap trailer out on the road and do some really cool stuff, some festivals and state fairs and the whole 9 yards, but we're up for anything. I'm ready to go.
I'm going to try to be on the road a little bit more in 2024 with my podcast equipment, with, and be set up at, some of these expos and farm shows to where I can go out and I can get to meet some people and I don't know, hopefully spread
come to the McCook Farm and Ranch show in November. Dude, Mike Calicrate will probably be there.
I'm going to work on Darren about that.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
I've been thinking about RCAF. Probably
we're going to be there. Yeah.
Probably going to Bottom Line Conference, which that's a smaller one in Western Kansas. But so yeah.
Yeah, cool.
All
Well,
right.
like I said, hopefully we'll see you again soon. It was fun being on here. I really, really appreciate. Family appreciates it. Yeah, maybe we'll do it again someday.
Well, I appreciate your soap, and your body spray even kind of smells.
The old body booze, love it.
All right, buddy. Have a
Okay.
enjoy your weekend, and those of you out there on podcast land, they're listening to this on Monday or Tuesday. Go enjoy the rest of your week and get out of here. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our podcast. We'd also love to hear your thoughts, so leave us a review if you haven't already. And don't forget to check out the Q&A and the polls on Spotify. Your support helps us bring more enlightening conversations and fresh stories from the world of farming and ranching. Thank you for listening to Ranching Reboot, your favorite regenerative ag podcast.